is for the chief minister to if he wants still to retain the man, he can retain it. But let people discuss what these people are doing. But I am so surprised. Channels are saying that I have threatened to sack them. Newspapers in their editorials are saying that I have threatened to sack them. I have not. I have said I will withdraw my pleasure. Both the words are not synonymous. So therefore, the only thing that I can say is that I am a great believer in the obedience of the unenforceable. And there are two lines from one of our scripture which says that Sattasya Vachanam Shreya. It is very well, in fact desirable, needed to speak the truth. Satya dapi hitam vade. But that truth should be spoken which serves the larger interest of the people. Yad bhut hita matyantam etat satyam matam mam. What is beneficial, what serves the interest of Lok Sangra, Lok Kalyan is the best truth. I hope and pray that when all these 68 channels from all over India have come together, it will become much easier to prepare some guidelines, to impose some self-discipline, to see all these issues, because ultimately every institution in democracy must aim to serve the public interest. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Jai Hind.
Thank you very much, His Excellency Arif Mohammad Khan, Kerala Governor, for that keynote address. Arif Mohammad Khan, of course, sharing his always candid views on the topic future of news. We're now going to be swiftly moving ahead to our next session, because our next newsmaker, our next special guest is already with us, Akshata.
With the explosion in the sheer number of newsrooms across India, there is sprouting of editorial lines. This variety of editorial lines represent the huge spectrum of views that exist. Given such a background, and in sticking to the agenda of editorial lines, often news media is seen as biased and colored in their coverage. There needs to be a balanced reporting, presentation of news, and an inquisitorial line which questions every side of the spectrum to maintain the objectivity of news. But there are gaps, and there is some degree of editorial bias. To eliminate that is a constant effort.
Remember, we're trying to get you as many voices from across the country as possible today, because it is not just a conclave on Hindi media and English media. It is cutting across regional media as well, as we've been telling you continuously. And to talk with us further now on the topic future of news, is there a bias? We have Ms. YS Sharmila with us. She's the chief of the YSTRP. She, remember, launched the YSRTP in fact, July 2021, having experience in handling political campaigns. She has an insight into how the media covers politics and the apparent biases they hold and project as well. As the saying goes, it's important for us to be fair, but no less important to be seen to be fair as well. Well, Niranjan Iyer, the executive editor of Republic Media Network, will of course be with us for this fireside chat, along with Ms. YS Sharmila, chief of the YSRTP. But before we invite them on stage, let's quickly play out an AV setting the tone for this next special session.
Objectivity is in the DNA of news. Editorial subjectivity is a reality too. At the crossroads, there are open claims of bias. Is there a gap? Is there a need to course correct? Or are the allegations simply by those who are cornered by news reportage? Now on the NBF National Conclave, it is the YSR Telangana Party Chief, YS Sharmila, for a fireside chat on the future of news. Is there a bias?
And we are, of course, now going to be inviting them on stage for this next very, very engaging fireside chat. It promises to be a stimulating discussion. As we've told you, we've been trying to get you voices from all across the country to speak on this very, very important and, let me also say, groundbreaking inaugural edition of the NBF National Conclave. The theme, of course, of today's Future of News. All right, we're ready for the next session. Loud round of applause for Miss Y.S. Sharmila and the moderator, Niranjan. Niranjan, the floor is yours. Over to you.
Check. Thank you, Sharmila ji, for coming all the way to Delhi. It means a lot to us at NBF. And Y.S. Sharmila is the founder and president of the Yuvajana Shramika Raitu Telangana Party. She is the daughter of Y.S. Rajashekar Reddy.
Correction, Niranjan. This is just YSR Telangana Party.
Yes.
It stands
Yes.
by the name of my father, YSR.
Yes.
This is YSR Telangana Party.
YSR Telangana Party.
Right.
And can I ask you, when I speak to people from your party, your outfit, they say you're a political startup. Why are you a political startup, and why did you choose Telangana?
First of all, a great big thank you to Arnab for inviting me. And a huge thanks to everybody who made this idea possible. A platform where voices from the other parts of India are welcome and heard.
Yes.
And coming back to your question now, why Telangana?
Yeah.
Why not Telangana? I have grown up in Telangana. I have grown up in Hyderabad. I have studied in Hyderabad. I have married in Hyderabad. I have delivered 2 children in Hyderabad. I belong there. If there is any place in this whole country I call home,
Yeah.
it is in Hyderabad. Then why not Telangana? My past is there. My future is going to be there. My life is there. Why not Telangana?
You've decided it's going to be Telangana.
It has always been Telangana.
And it will always be Telangana.
Yes. Why not? Looks like that.
Hello, mic check.
And
1,
actually,
2, 3, 4,
a
check,
huge
check,
round of
check,
applause
check.
because Y.S. Sharmila has walked 2,700 kilometers, has paused the Padyatra to be with us here in Delhi.
Okay.
A lot of people, Sharmila, a lot of people, and in the media, of course, sometimes it's the front page, it's the second page, it's, every feature story is on pictures of a leader who has perhaps covered 1,000 kilometers. But not a lot of people across India know that you've covered 2,700 kilometers. Why are you doing this Padyatra, and what are you trying to do with this Padyatra? I mean, of course, we remember your late father was very popular and he had ground support. When you meet people, what do they tell you? Why is it important to meet people?
Why Padayatra? I'll begin with my father. Well, he chose to do the Padayatra before he became the Chief Minister. And when he did that Padayatra, he established an amazing connect with the people. And that connect was so strong. I think his soul actually connected with his people, so much so that it became the blueprint for his governance. When Dr. YSR, my father, planned so many of the welfare schemes, I think everything had a bearing of his experience from the Padayatra. Like, say, for example, he wanted to educate, poor people free of cost, higher education. Many people who couldn't afford to be doctors or engineers, by just his fees reimbursement scheme, many lakhs of people could study. And there is something called the Arogyasri, which was actually, I think, emulated even in a form of it even in the USA. It was a scheme that was meant to help the poor people get premium medical care, free of cost. So things like these, all of these came out of his Padayatra, out of his experiences from the Padayatra. So the connect that Padayatra gives is amazing. So I embarked on this Padayatra with the sense that there is nothing else that connects us to the people better than a Padayatra is what I feel, or as my father has said.
Yeah.
So when we embarked on this Padayatra, when I embarked on this Padayatra, we embarked on this Padayatra because the Chief Minister of Telangana has been saying that under his rule, the people of Telangana are living in a state of bliss, while the contrary is true. So to throw light on the people's problems, I embarked on this Padayatra. I in fact threw a challenge to the Chief Minister himself, saying, if indeed you can walk with me one day, I will show you the kind of problems the people are facing. If indeed what you are saying is true, that under your state, under your rule, the people are under bliss, that there are no problems, I will apologize to you and go back home. But if I show you the problems, if I show you the suicides of the farmers, if I show you the unemployed youth, if I show you the old people who are still not getting pensions, if I show you the many problems, many other problems also that the people are facing, then the Chief Minister will have to apologize to the people of Telangana and he has to resign and make a Dalit a Chief Minister. This is what he claimed to do before he became the Chief Minister. So I think the people is where the true test lies. That's where the rubber meets the road. So I think this is what we are trying to achieve here, throw light on the people's problems. And I urge the media also, like you said, somebody who's not even done 500 kilometers is getting amazing publicity, amazing coverage. But I've covered 2,000.
You think it's disproportionate?
Of course it is. Of course it is.
Why do you think it's disproportionate?
Because of your, I don't know, your bias. Again, yes, bias.
The question is there a bias? You think there
Of
is a
course
bias?
there is a bias. Of course there is a bias. Of course there is a bias. I have covered 2,700 kilometers of Padayatra. Then why am I not getting the coverage? See, the problem is not you covering me. What I'm trying to achieve here is to throw light on the problems of the people of Telangana, their plight. So really, with a sincere heart, I implore the media, please come and throw some light on the plight of my people in Telangana.
Okay, let me ask you a question. You've been traveling to Delhi often. You recently came to Delhi, you claim there's a scam, nobody's talking about the scam, nobody's talking about corruption. Why do you feel like that? I mean, is it true that you came and met the CAG on these scams?
Yes, actually, in fact, just this morning we have met the CAG to complain about the same corruption. Now this corruption we are talking about, I call this the biggest scam of India. This is the biggest scam of India because it involves money to the tune of 1.2 lakh crore of rupees.
How did you come to that conclusion on the figure?
Because the money that was spent on this project, according to government figures, it's right on there on the paper. It's not a project that's yet to be done. It's a project that's already completed, commissioned. It began in 2016, declared finished in 2019. So this is the kind of money that's already spent on this project. It's called the Kaleshwaram Lift Irrigation Project. And the money spent on this project is 1.2 lakh crores of rupees. This project was just meant to irrigate, meant to irrigate 18 lakh acres, but just irrigates less than 1 lakh acres. So the whole project itself the engineering of the project is flawed. This is the same project. This project was actually the brainchild of my father, late YSR. When he was the Chief Minister, he planned this project at the cost of 38,000 crores of rupees to irrigate 16.5 lakh acres of land. But the current Chief Minister said he would irrigate 18 lakh of acres at the cost of 1.2 lakh crores of rupees. So why is it hiked by so many times? It's 3 times more than what one chief
Have
minister
you asked him
wanted.
these questions? Has he answered these questions? Has anybody from his party answered these questions?
Anybody from?
From his party answered these questions? The BRS. You're referring to the BRS, right?
No, yeah, the BRS, correct. No, nobody answers these questions because it is blatantly, it's just right there. It's very obvious that the corruption involved in this scam is so obvious. They don't have the courage, they don't have the face to answer any of these questions. Actually, why don't they answer these questions? Because the media doesn't question them in the first place. I am asking you all. Why don't you question KCR? Why don't you question
We question
TRS?
every government. We question every government. In fact, we are not very popular
Of course
with a lot
not.
of
No,
governments.
no. The local media is biased and the national media doesn't cover us. So there is nobody questioning Mr. KCR. So there are no answers. I'm asking you why. Why don't you ask the questions?
Okay, let me flip it this
there
way.
are two reasons why you may not be answering these questions, there are 2 reasons why you may not be posing these questions. One, probably the national media doesn't know about it. If it doesn't know about it, it's a shame because it is the biggest scam of India. And another reason may be that you don't care. If you don't care, I'll tell you why you should care. You should care because the funds that went into this project actually came from central financial institutions.
Yes.
Money to the tune of 1 lakh crores came from institutions like Rural Electrification Corporation, like NABARD, like PNB, like Power Finance Corporation. 1 lakh crore of rupees came from all of these institutions into this project. So this is not notional money that I am talking about. This is not money on paper that I am talking about. This is actual money that went out of the exchequer into the hands of the contractor and from there siphoned off.
Yeah.
So this is the money of the people of India. This is actually taxpayers'
Do people talk
money.
about this when you go on a Padyatra, for example? Do people talk about this? Is there awareness within the people?
Well, some people do talk about it. Some people can see the results of this project because a project that was meant to irrigate 18 lakh of acres is not even irrigating 1 lakh acre of acres. The government itself says the last rainy season, all they irrigated from this project was 57,000 acres. So it's obvious that this project is a fiasco. But what I'm saying is it's not getting coverage, it's not getting the kind of attention it needs. This is actual money that is gone into the hands, siphoned off. This is actual money of the people, but where is the national media covering it? And why is the national media not covering it is my question. This is the biggest scam of India, on par with the 2G or the Colgate. This is the biggest scam of India in the recent history. 1.2 lakh crores of rupees. Imagine that.
Well, you've gone to the CAG. Let's hope that there is investigation into it. And of course, I mean, for every scam, there is a report, there is evidence, there is investigation that is done. I'm sure at the relevant stage, whatever comes out will be looked at, right? And will be reported. And I know that there have been several protests that have been held on this issue that have also been covered by the media. So you may be wrong. You may be wrong. And one more thing I have to say. Politicians also sometimes, they accuse the media of things which may not be true. Because I'm not so sure that they make statements without perhaps checking the actual coverage of what a channel.
Excuse me, Niranjan, this is the biggest scam of India. Is it getting the attention that it's supposed to get? Is it getting the attention that 2G got? Is it getting the attention that Colgate got? See, somewhere in Bihar, Mr. Lalu's fodder scam was what, like 1,000 crores or less than 1,000 crores or 2,000 crores? People in Kerala know about it. People in Telangana know about it. Why? Because it's so close to Delhi. You people cover it.
Yes.
So somewhere far in Telangana, there's such a big scam happening in Telangana. 1.2 lakh crores of rupees is siphoned off and nobody is talking about it. Did you know about it? Do you know about it? Do the national media talk about it? Okay, whether the national media knows about it or talks about it, I do not know about it, but I definitely know that the BJP knows about it. Because people from the BJP party, the minister himself, Minister Shekhawat, himself, the Minister for Water Resources himself, he comes to our states and says that Kaleshwaram project is an ATM project for the Chief Minister. Mrs. Nirmala Sitharaman herself comes and says this is a ridiculous project because the numbers doesn't... Exactly, I'm saying the BJP knows about it. No, the BJP knows about it. The BJP knows about it. My question to the BJP is, why don't you commission an inquiry then? If you know the irregularities in the project, you are the watchdog of the country. You are the people in authority in India. You are the people who are ruling the country, then why don't you commission an authority? Why isn't there an audit? Why isn't there any inquiry commissioned on this project? Or why isn't there any action taken on the contractor who has built such a ridiculous project? So if BJP knows about it, they are not doing anything about it. Why? Because the media is not...
No, that you maybe...
That's because the media is not forcing them to. If the media covers it enough, then the BJP will be forced to take some action.
But let me tell you something. For example, you've thrown up figures here. It's a claim. As of now, it's a claim. It's a claim, right? There has to be an investigation. But I want to go back to one point that you made. You said we covered the Bihar story because it's close to Delhi. I want to correct you on that. Because that is exactly the kind of media we don't want to be, and we are not. It's the kind of media perhaps that we refer to as Lutyens media, right? Because if you look at the coverage of media, we do a lot. We pay a lot of stress to stories from different parts of the country. It's not true. I want to correct you on that. Things have changed. For example, one of the biggest stories we recently covered from the state of Telangana, the case of the minor gang rape. If you remember, we were one of the few networks that covered it to the point where there was intense scrutiny and pressure on the government to act. You will have to appreciate that. I mean, it's not as if media networks are scared of the government or something like that. So that may be a little...
No, I'm not saying you're scared of it. I'm just saying that you're too far away to pay any interest. I'm just saying that, see, what I'm saying is that you cover news from what's happening in other parts of the world more than you cover news on what's happening in other parts of India.
Yeah.
See, it's a simple thing. See, geographically, we are so far away from Delhi that it feels like a long distance relationship with the capital.
It's not true.
To top it up, and to top it up, I don't agree with you, Niranjan. And to top it up, you ignore us.
It hurts. That's not. I don't know who you're referring to when you say you are ignoring us.
It hurts. Do anybody here agree with me? Do anybody here agree with me that the central media does not cover...
What is central media?
I mean, the national media does not cover the states that are farthest from the capital.
No, not true.
See the applause. Okay. See the applause. Arey, hum hai bhai. Hum bhi hai bhai.
I am from Bangalore. I am from Karnataka.
जरा देखो हमें भी देखो जरा हमें भी देखो
I share your angst.
जरा हमें भी देखो इतना अनजान भी मत मारो इतना अनजान भी मत मारो
I share your angst. I share your angst. I am from Karnataka. I speak Kannada. I speak Telugu as well. That's my mother tongue.
The further away you are from Delhi, the lesser you get covered.
Not anymore.
The lesser you get covered.
Things have changed.
No. You ask me. You told me that somebody who's not even done a Padayatra 500 kilometers gets covered more than me.
That is Lutyens media.
No. Whatever. Did you cover me? Did you cover me?
Of course
did
we
you
did.
No, you
the
didn't.
Fact that we are
no,
here
you didn't. No, you didn't.
Course you
no, you called me for Kaleshwaram project. I don't agree with that at all. I don't agree with that at all. The only time that the national media covers the other states is during elections.
Not at
Which
all.
state has given BJP or Congress how many seats? Or which regional party is giving which alliance, UPA or NDA, how many seats? That's what interests the national media most about the regional parties in the states that are lower south.
We got the right leader for the subject. Is there a bias? Now let me ask you my question to you. See, you're a young politician and like I was saying to you a little while earlier, right? It would have been easy and as an observer and as a journalist, one would wonder that it would have been easier for you to join a party or be associated with join a party or be associated with a party you're familiar with. But why did you choose to launch your own party? And what are some of the challenges you are facing? Because you're alone and you have an election coming up. What are some of the challenges you face? And are you getting enough support on the ground?
Well, I did not join any other party like the TRS or the Congress or the BJP that are already existing in Telangana, because I did not approve with any of those parties. I do not approve with the style of their parties, the way they are functioning right now, the ideologies of certain parties, and I do not agree with the corruption of the TRS, of course. The reason I floated my own party is to bring back my father's reign. To make him proud is the reason I started YSR Telangana Party, that is named after my father. Of course, there are challenges. There will be challenges to anybody starting up anything. Like you said, any startup will have challenges. I do have my own challenges. And as a woman, I have a little more challenges.
Yes, I understand that.
Yes.
Why don't you speak about that? Because very, very rarely do politicians actually speak about the challenges that they face. You mentioned as a woman, I find it more challenging. Why do you say that?
I say that because the perspective of the general politicians is that they belittle women. Like, say, for example, I have floated a party. And when I floated a party and we wanted to do a hunger strike actually for the unemployed youth, because our government has not been giving notifications since 8 years and there is so much of unemployment in Telangana. So when I wanted to do this hunger strike for 3 days, the type of comments that came were so women-centric. They were like, oh, you want to do this thing. One of them, actually the chief minister's son himself called, every Tuesday I wanted to do a hunger strike, so he called it as the women doing vratas. What kind of a comment is that? Why would you say that? If it was a man doing that, would you say that?
Is that becoming a trend? Because often...
Another minister said that, because I'm doing it on every Tuesday, he said that every Tuesday, how do you put it in Hindi? It's like Mangalwar Sali kind of a thing.
Oh.
Those are horrendous. They actually hurt. What kind of comments are these? Just because I'm a woman. Is that what you mean? Of course there are challenges.
It was fantastic to have you with us on the NBF National Conclave. Y.S. Sharmila, thank you very much for coming all the way. And are you going back to the Padyatra tomorrow?
Yes.
All the very best. And thank you so much for taking the time out to be with us.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you for that very passionate session there, Y.S. Sharmila. Ms. Y.S. Sharmila, of course, Chief of the YSRTP, speaking to Niranjan there at the NBF National Conclave. And we are, of course, now staying with the southern states and moving swiftly to our next session, which is titled Future of News, Media and Opposition. Remember, as we've been emphasizing at this conclave today, we are clearly, of course, making a splash because this conclave is airing on more than 40 channels as we speak. We are re-emphasizing the fact that we are simply not a federation of national media channels, but regional media channels as well, which all form part of this NBF. The inaugural edition of the National Conclave of the NBF is focusing on the theme of future of news, and that of course is the focus of our conclave today, the multiple sessions as well that we have been airing today.
The News Broadcasters Federation is India's largest news federation with over 55 members. It is the only news body with maximum representation from regional broadcasters across the length and breadth of India. The NBF and all its members are united in their commitment to ensuring that news media must truly serve as a strong pillar of our vibrant democracy. The NBF, in sheer membership numbers and beyond them, has ensured unparalleled representation from news broadcasters across languages and the regions of India. NBF is the first body of broadcasters in India that truly represents the vision and concerns of regional, vernacular and national media that constitute the changing face of media in India. The aim of the body is to ensure that the united voice of broadcasters across regions and languages are heard and solutions are sought in a way that further strengthens broadcast news in India.
Okay, and we are in fact now actually going to be going across to another very, very interesting session, which is titled Future of News, Federalism and Free Press. And in fact, in this session, we have a gamut of political guests straddling the length and breadth of the nation. All the guests in this next panel are stalwarts in their own individual capacity, in their own individual political party, and actually, as I said, are from all across the nation. We are quickly now going to be moving to our next panel, which is titled, as I said, Future of News, Federalism and Free Press.
India's mosaic of ideas and ethnicities is best catered by its federal structure. Mirroring this is the rise of regional news media, which no longer operates within its traditional sense of boundaries. The power center has diffused from the concentration and narrative building set only by the Hindi or English-speaking media. Therefore, industry estimates which show a steady growth of regional media channels comes as no surprise.
Indeed, Akshata, there are, of course, a whirlwind of challenges that still need to be addressed to keep the media free at a federal level. What are those challenges? What are the obstacles in the path to achieve this goal and these challenges? This is something we will, of course, be discussing, as I said, with our very, very experienced political guests. We have in this next session the Tamil Nadu BJP chief, Annamalai. He's, of course, joining us live here. Let's welcome all of them with a loud round of applause. I will call you in just a bit to the stage. We also have Chief Spokesperson of the National Conference Party, Tanveer Sadiq. Tanveer Sadiq is with us as well. Welcome, Tanveer, to the show. We also have the Biju Janata Dal Member of Parliament, who is just come back from representing India in Rwanda at the IPU. Sasmit Patra with us as well. Sasmitji, welcome to the conclave of NBF. We are going to be joined also by the Editor-in-Chief of Prague News, Prasanto Rajguru, as the moderator for this next session. Let's quickly first, to set the tone for this session, play out an AV on the theme.
Quasi-federalism is a key feature of Indian democracy. The rise of Indian states is mirrored by the rising regional news media. Regional and local media entities are a crucial part of the industry. Federalism and free press are key ingredients of our democracy. Now on the NBF National Conclave, gear up for an unmissable discussion on the future of news, federalism and free press.
And let's welcome them with a loud round of applause. May I please invite on stage Tanveer Sadiq, Sasmit Patra, Annamalai and Prasanto Rajguru. Yeah, please. Prasantaji will just be joining you for the moderation of this session. Could we please have you on stage as well? Mr. Rajguru, the floor is yours. Over to you for this very, very interesting session titled Future of News, Federalism and Free Press.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. First of all the guests, all the faces sitting here are very much familiar to you. You know all of them. And my face is, of course, not known to you. I'm from Assam. I look after the editorial desk of one Assamese channel, namely Prague News. We have been airing Assamese news for last 22 years. Ladies and gentlemen, this session's issue is federalism and free press. And while we were given the subject, the NBF had given us certain terms of reference. The terms of reference were very specific, mandate is very specific. We are supposed to discuss about the growth of regional media along with the growth of Hindi and English media. And NBF is very clear that the national media, quote unquote, does not exist at all. The term national media we have been using is actually meant for the Hindi and English media. There is no existence of national media as of now or as on date. Ladies and gentlemen, while discussing the federalism, all of us will appreciate that the very term federalism is a plural term. And the very idea of India is also plural. So, you cannot detach federalism from pluralism of our nation. So, while discussing the federalism, we must keep it in mind that the states were reorganized on the basis of language. And language has a very crucial role to play as far as the reorganization of states is concerned. Later on, in late 70s or after 70s, some states were carved out on the basis of ethnicity like Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, etc., etc. So, the federalism, the parameters of federalism was, one, the language, the state reorganization, number one, language, and number two, ethnicity. That reflects the plural and federal character of India. Now, my first question to Mr. Annamalai, the chief of the BJP, that one slogan or one narrative is making round in the popular notion that Hindu, Hindi, Hindutva. In that narrative, where is the space for federalism, Mr. Annamalai?
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for inviting me here. If there is somebody who is pitching this narrative sitting in Delhi, that India is a country of people sitting in Delhi and deciding what narrative people should speak, I don't think anybody in the South is going to agree, or I don't think even many leaders in Delhi is going to agree with that. The problem is, in this age of information consumption, if 10 guys start peddling the same lie again and again and again, that it is only going to be this kind of country, this kind of party is going to do this kind of thing in a particular state, that driven by news channels, especially in the South, run by political parties. I come from a state where there are at least 12, 13 news channels run by 5 political parties. In terms of TRPs, the highest TRPs are claimed by news channels run by political parties. They have an agenda. For example, if there is a committee of official languages recently, which is doing rounds across India, in the report when it says, instead of Hindi in a category A state, it can be, instead of English in a category A state, can be replaced by Hindi. And category C state like Tamil Nadu, English can be replaced by Tamil. Okay. This part is edited out. Only the first part is taken. And the news channels, they go to town crying that central government is trying to impose Hindi, somebody from Delhi trying to impose Hindi. Nobody said it. But the only problem is the voice is higher. The voice is much larger. Because when you, as I said, 13 channels, maybe 2-3 channels I see in the NBF board here from Tamil Nadu. That is why they have chosen to join this NBF federation. I think they are also leading channels from Tamil Nadu. That needs to stop. It is not somebody is doing it. The noise some regional news channels create that is run by political parties to suit their agenda of divisiveness, right from 1960, the same divisiveness you keep speaking over and over. Some bureaucrat in Delhi writing some Hindi letter to somebody in Tamil Nadu, immediately announce that as the central government's policy of everybody writing Hindi to the state of Tamil Nadu. That needs to stop, sir. I don't believe in that narrative, but that narrative is being said by people who can't take on the developmental politics or people who can't take on the Honorable Prime Minister Modi ji.
Thank you, Mr. Annamalai. Same question to Mr. Sasmit Patra. So, Mr. Patra, where is the space of federalism and in that narrative? Hindu, Hindi, Hindustan.
You see, firstly, I don't know where this narrative is coming in from. But my simple, humble submission would be that when you go into states and you talk to people in the regional languages, there is a misnomer that probably media knows better is wrong. The people in the states know much better than the people sitting in Delhi. When you go for politics, and all the three of us come from political parties and you have been closely following politics, in a panchayat election, there is more politics than probably a Vidhan Sabha or a Lok Sabha election. And I'll tell you the reason why. We generally assume that people in the state, when they are going into regional channels or regional identities, are not very much aware about it. They know what is happening in Delhi, what is the narrative being set from Delhi, and they will choose what they think is right for them and will reject what they do not think right. And this entire TRP business, I'm not going into that. But my sense is, I come from Odisha, I come from the Biju Janata Dal, from Mr. Naveen Patnaik ji's party, and we are a party that has been in power for 5 consecutive terms. We are 22 years and counting. And in this period of time, you've had the Congress party and you had the BJP. So you had a national narrative that was always there and will be. But despite that, why does Odisha choose a regional party? It's not because of the narrative being set by Delhi, but in terms of governance that is set by the state. So ultimately, what is the narrative is probably gets you 2 or 3% or 4% of the margins of population.
Fine.
The larger population, whether it's Tamil Nadu or Jammu Kashmir or Odisha, know very well what's right for them and they'll choose it, irrespective of whether television channels in Delhi or Bhubaneswar think otherwise. So therefore, narrative setting and narrative imposition is counterproductive to the same people who are setting that narrative, whichever media it is. Over a period of time, they may watch that media because that media seems to have entertainment value. But they will not take that media seriously when they decide on their preferences and choices in governance. That would be my 2 cents.
Thank you. Tanvir, your take, please.
Thank you very much, NBF, and all of you here to invite us. You know, I personally believe that, it is the strengthening of federal structure and the recognition of diversity of this country that somehow strengthens the country and shows the vibe, the whole strength of this country. The fact that we all, whether it is from Tamil Nadu, Odisha, all of us from different background, different religion, different states, come together on a stage. The only thing that binds us is a country called India. I think there is nothing else to it than a huge country like this. But I come from a state of Jammu and Kashmir, and I think I have been at a total opposite of what federalism means here. I will not go into how the Article 370 was abolished or revoked.
We shall come to the question later on. Article 370.
No, I'm just telling you how we have been on the receiving end. The fact that federalism, there was a prosperous state. Because see, this country will only grow when the states will be strengthened. True. And I believe when the state of Jammu and Kashmir, when it was downgraded from a prosperous state to a UT and then divided into 2, I think that is something that the whole country should have woken up and said, this is wrong. I mean, I'll not, like I said, 370 is a part of it. But this was something that strengthened the federalism structure here. Unfortunately, the media celebrated it. And media said that this, I mean, there was not a single voice who said, look here, Jammu and Kashmir has been downgraded to a UT, that is wrong. And that also without the mandate of the people. This is something that actually hurts us. Because do you decide the states by how many seats they have? Or do you decide that if Jammu and Kashmir is a part of this country, then of course what is good for Maharashtra, UP, Tamil Nadu or any other state is as good for Jammu and Kashmir. So this is something that we have been on the receiving end, and I feel that this country can only grow if the federal structure is strengthened. If you try to weaken it and centralize the whole system, then I believe that this country will not only stop growing, there will be a lot of alienation and a lot of demands, which of course the center will not listen to. So I feel federalism is very important in this country.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, while I was given the agenda, I saw the name of Mr. Sasmit Patra, but I didn't notice his party's name. So I was of the idea that Mr. Sambit Patra is coming. So, so finally I found Mr. Sasmit Patra. Glad to see you, sir. But thing is that, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Sambit Patra is from Orissa. He's a BJP leader. He's a regular happening in every television channel. You must have already seen him almost regularly. But the state from which he is coming, the issues of Orissa, once in a blue moon we used to see in the Hindi or English television. So space, the deserving space for the regional issues, it is not been given. Y.S. Sharmila has openly complained it in this platform few minutes back. So I would like to hear from Sasmit Patra. Did Orissa get the deserving space in the English or Hindi media?
Well, I'll not join the issue and say that Odisha has got or hasn't got. I'll give 2 or 3 instances that will say for itself whether we have. 2020 COVID, oxygen was in short supply. Odisha stepped up, and oxygen from many of the areas within Odisha came up because we have a large manufacturing base of steel. And the national media covered. When Hockey India was forgotten and hockey started doing very well, people started looking for where is hockey coming in from. They realized it was Odisha.
True.
So they started looking at Odisha. When disaster management is there and they say there is visual casualty, where do they look for? They look for Odisha. So I think if the stories are compelling from different states, if the stories hold water, and if the stories hold the national imagination, the national media cannot afford to ignore. And I'll tell you the simple reason why. The national media can afford to ignore for a certain period of time, but today you have social media. So even if the national media forgets or affords to ignore, the social media will also carry those stories in parallel, and people will start looking for those stories, and the national media will automatically start getting onto track. So earlier there was a situation, we had only the newspaper, the radio, the TV, they were the only media. Because what is media? Medium. Medium was what? For communication. Today you have multiple communication platforms.
Yes.
And therefore a media, if it feels it can ignore, a state cannot, as long as, and again I say, if a state is willing to walk the talk, deliver on governance, ensure the right aspects at a national level, the entire national media will watch. They watched in oxygen supply, they watched in hockey, they watched in disaster management, and they'll keep watching.
Couple of days back, your government has regularized as many as 57,000 casual employees. Have you seen this news in English or Hindi media?
I'm not really looking forward to English and Hindi carrying me. I'm not. Why should? Because we have regularized, we are doing governance for the last 22 years, led by Honorable Chief Minister Shri Naveen Patnaik ji. When Naveen Babu, you've asked on various platforms, and they said, sir, why can't you speak so more? He says, let my work speak for itself. Why should my words? And that's the secret source of success behind Biju Janata Dal and Naveen Patnaik. He doesn't speak, his work speaks. We talked about oxygen and hockey. Did he go to town and put up full-page newspaper ads? Have you ever seen a full-page newspaper ad nationally coming from Odisha and from Mr. Naveen Patnaik? Never. But you listen to him, you want to know what he says, and you want to know what he does. That is important.
Mr. Annamalai, your take please. Is your state, Tamil Nadu, is getting the adequate and deserving space in Hindi and English media?
I think more than the deserving space, I would say, many a times when the debate from Delhi happens, it doesn't happen with the correct narrative. When regional party in Tamil Nadu talks about the Dravidian development model, and people don't have the patience, people don't have the understanding to get into it, behind it, see it, what it is. When Tamil Nadu talks about the center being against it, when DMK keeps making that statement, of course we get a space. It is not about the space. It is about the complete non-understanding of the issue at hand, not seeing from a Tamil Nadu perspective, not debating the actual points that is in the ground. In fact, I would say, with respect to the state of Tamil Nadu, it is overrepresented many a time, not especially from the Delhi, from the media space. I don't think any other state has got the number of channels that we have. Our state is a leading pioneer which has managed to marry news to a general entertainment to a corporate. If you see a corporate belonging to a political party owns some media, and not only is it a news channel, it will be a general entertainment channel also, which will showcase a movie. Then at 8 o'clock, they'll put a news. They have taken it to a different level. They know how to hook the audience, present the news. So the fine lines of separation is not there between corporate, between a political party, between the news. It has all merged. And from the Delhi perspective, it is all the wrong narratives that people talk from the studio here, which actually doesn't resonate with the state of Tamil Nadu. That is my two complaints here.
Your take please, Mr. Tanveer Sadiq, very briefly, that did Jammu and Kashmir get adequate space or the deserving space in English and Hindi media?
Unfortunately, we've been deprived of democracy from the last 4.5 years. So whatever is happening right now is done by Raj Bhavan. So, and again, it brings again the federalism and how the news channels have been biased towards us. The fact that if you read the local newspapers, you will have only big pictures of the LG there, while as it should have been a democratically elected government. The fact that all along, and I'll not blame the present dispensation, right from Congress rule, I feel Raj Bhavan has been all along used to weaken the democracy. And especially since I come from Jammu and Kashmir and I belong to the party headed by Farooq Abdullah. So I believe when the media should have woken up and said, look here, this is wrong. It is not Raj Bhavan which should run the affairs of the state, but it should be a democratically elected government. Like I said, Congress has its track record and it's pretty bad. So is now whatever is happening right till the 2019. So I believe I know Arnab Goswami has done more than shows on Kashmir than probably all the 75 news channels have done. And he knows Kashmir very well. Unfortunately, I expected him to have a debate on democracy because I know he fights for democracy on his channel. But unfortunately, when we don't have friends here in Delhi who don't speak about democracy, you may have reasons to believe that probably my party or we don't have the same ideology as other political parties, but we are Indians. We believe in the Constitution. We believe that this country can only grow when the states are strengthened. Unfortunately, the narrative that is, I'll tell you on a different scale. A government is formed by people where the people vote for them. They give the mandate to the government to govern for 5 years. Then if they do wrong or right, it is decided after 5 years. But during those 5 years, it is the role of the media to tell the government what wrong they are doing. Because for the right reasons, they've already been elected. It is for the wrong reasons that you need to tell them, look here, this is wrong. And there where you should stop. Unfortunately, we've been, like I said, on the receiving end, not only from the media, but also from the people because of the narrative that has been caused. So unfortunately, you may claim a lot of development in Jammu and Kashmir, but it is the duty of the government there, an elected government, not the Raj Bhavan or not the not the non-elected people. So I feel it's been very unfair when it comes to Jammu and Kashmir.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We are already behind the schedule, and I have been asked to wind up. So thank you for being with us. See you. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prashant Dada. Thank you, Annamalai-ji. Thank you, Tanveer, and thank you, Mr. Shashmit Patra. Moving on to our next panel this evening, we have a special guest joining us on video, and he's joining us live from Andhra Pradesh this evening. Now, is the news media biased in favor of the ruling dispensation? Often there's a charge level that hyper-competitive news media scenario in the country, national, regional, local, tends to be the voice of the ruling dispensation. Is it the lure of the government advertisement or pure ideological push that drives a pro-government stance? The truth of the matter is that despite a strong federal India and a strong center, the opposition voice is here to stay and will stay, and that is due to the plurality of the news media where no one voice prevails. How does one draw the roadmap with mushrooming digital media with little or no oversight? Talking to us today about this alleged bias is the head of the TDP, the Telugu Desam Party. He served as the Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh from 1995 to 2004. From 2014 to 2019, Mr. Chandrababu Naidu will have the unique perspective of having followed the media as an NDA alliance partner and then as an outlier for the last 4 years. And for this conversation, I'd like to bring up on stage Rishabh Gulati, the managing editor of NewsX. Can I have Rishabh on stage? Rishabh, the dais is yours. Mr. Naidu is joining us live. Rishabh.
Niranjan, thank you. Chandrababu Naidu ji, welcome to the first National Broadcasting Federation's first conclave, sir. It's a pleasure to have you on video call with us. Chandrababu ji, in your state, sir, you've just come back where you've been protesting against the what you call illegal detention of Pawan Kalyan in a hotel. You face trial and tribulations. You can argue that your security taken away, searched at airport, harassment. Your opponent in Andhra Pradesh can also argue that he's faced trials and tribulations, cases, imprisonment, arrest. What is to blame, sir? Is politics to blame for all of this, or is the media to blame for all of this?
No, respected Rishabh and friends who are all there, and also Arnab Goswami, editor Republic TV, and Niranjan, and friends, ladies and gentlemen. This is a unique opportunity for people like us to express our views. This National Broadcasters Federation is organizing National Conclave. Especially, they have given me a subject, media and opposition, what is happening in Andhra Pradesh. I am very happy to express some of my views for you.
Go ahead, sir. We can hear you.
Always, media is very, very crucial. Yeah, there is some resound. That's why. Okay.
So you're not able to
resound.
There
Because
might
of
be an
this,
echo, sir, but we can hear you just fine. You can carry on. We'll try to get that echo fixed. You please carry on, sir.
Yeah, okay, thank you. In democracy, always there are 4 pillars. One is legislature, executive, judiciary, and media. In democracy, always opposition parties or political parties are playing different roles, especially opposition, other political parties. This is how democracy has to function smoothly. Everybody should have freedom to express and communicate and expose the public issues. Especially media and opposition has to work together. In history, if you see, media played so many times very, very vital role in exposing corruption. Even opposition parties always will collect information and will expose in assembly and outside all platforms. That reports, media will take it up and then they will communicate to the people in an effective way. In Andhra Pradesh, all these things are becoming very, very bad condition, bad to worse. If you see here, there is a reverse. One is, media is not giving adequate space for opposition parties in different levels. It may be national level or state level, all these things. Even other issue, if you see here, governments are giving so much of money for advertisements. Thereby, they wanted to carry only positive news and no opposition party news. This is another very, very bad trends are going on. As a matter of fact, I was in opposition for the last 3.5 years. Earlier also I was in opposition for 10 years. We were in ruling 22 years, but 19 years we are in opposition. But first time we are seeing this type of governance or political party which is totally snubbing all political parties and also opposition party especially. They brought one GO 2430. If you see here, this GO is very clear. Powers to department HODs to file cases on media through GO number 2430. After careful examination of the matter, government hereby accord permission to delegate powers to the secretaries of respective departments to issue rejoinders, file complaints and lodge appropriate cases, if need be, through public prosecutor against defamatory news items published, telecast, posted in print, electronic, social media, pertaining to their respective departments after following due powers of law. What I am saying,
it's the politicians to blame. It's the governance that puts media also under threat, and it's the politicians fighting amongst themselves. Why is the media to blame in here, sir?
No, I am not blaming media. There is manipulation for media. That is one step. Those who are writing, they are blackmailing them, this type of GO, and no reporter is able to write. Is it democracy? That is what I wanted to highlight. Even so-called your press council or Broadcasters Federation or Editors Guild, nobody is able to fight. That is the pity. That is what I wanted to highlight. One is this issue.
How can podiums
we are moving in a big way for 75 years.
How can federations better representing the regional press? And there is a specific
example
that has been raised where a lot of the regional press sometimes is owned by political parties. How can that fair voice be represented then, sir?
No. That is what I am asking you. Some political parties are having media. Added to that, those who are independently acting, they are putting this type of blackmailing tactics and also facing booking cases against them. How can they act? Finally, what is happening, opposition role or communication has become practically very difficult. One example I am telling you. Recently in Visakhapatnam, Pavan Kalyan, Janasena president, he wanted to visit that place for a program, Janavani. When he landed there, they wanted to put restrictions on him. Then they attacked, and also in turn, he was totally harassed day in, day out. Very bad incident. Even political parties are unable to perform. Even media is unable to write. Is it not the responsibility of national media to take it up? That is what I am questioning here.
But
this is where, if you protect democracy,
in power,
then only we can do all these things.
You've been alliance at the center, you've ruled the state for more than 20 years, sir. They lobby the media and pressure the media, but sometimes it's convenient for opposition's sake to say that the media is not with us. The first question I asked you was about Pawan Kalyan. The problem is the politics. The problem is not the media.
No, not the media, but media is snubbing. That is what I wanted to highlight in this platform. It is not only media and opposition. It is media, ruling party, and also opposition parties, all political parties for that matter. Okay. That is what I wanted to emphasize here.
You know, you've been
even during my tenure also, you have seen national level.
State, you've been lobbying for farmers in your state. A lot of them have been on tour in Delhi to lobby media houses to cover their cause. When you saw the farmer agitation that was brought to Delhi and the kind of coverage it got, do you feel then frustration that there is a regional disparity, although your cause was different, but the community was the same?
No, what I am saying, even there also not adequate coverage at national media. Sometimes media at a national level, you are giving priority for some issues, but genuine issues. One is Amaravati farmers. You are unable to focus. This is what I wanted to emphasize here. This is the historic fight they are doing. Government has given right for them. Court has upheld. They wanted to go for protest. They want to go rally, Padayatra. Even Padayatra, they are unable to do it. Is it a democracy? This is where I am questioning, or I am highlighting this forum.
But
even national media has to take it up.
To whom? So
earlier, if you see on your own, public issues you have highlighted.
So you are of course hoping we criticize Jagan Reddy and give greater coverage. I'm assuming you are hoping we criticize the national government. But when it comes to the criticism of the opposition, then the media is painted as sold out. How is that fair?
No, I am not saying that. Impartial way in a democracy. Only issue based you have to highlight. That is what I am asking. Media and opposition, that is the role we have to play. I have seen all these things for the last 40 years, not today. Even before economic reforms, after economic reforms. I am watching at national level so many political developments. I am not blaming anybody. But at the same time, this is the platform I want to express my views. We are all working for this great country, to empower this great country, and ultimately everybody should express their views freely. Media has to cover. That is what I want to emphasize.
Chandrababuji, last thoughts and last question to you is, in keeping with what you just said, there is a Team India approach, but oftentimes opposition becomes for the sake of opposition. Is it okay, in your opinion, that when something good happens and when governments do good things, that equally vehemently they should be praised for it, not just finding fault and criticizing?
No, I am very clear. India is a great country. All of us has to remember this. After economic reforms, India is moving very fast. And at the same time, in a knowledge economy, India is playing very vital role. In future, we are going to play more vital role. In knowledge economy, IT is the backbone. That India is very strong. If you see all Indians all over the world, they are doing extremely well. Another 25 years, they are going to do further better. Why I am saying all these things? There is a great time for India if all of us as team work together, irrespective of our political differences. Finally, India will become 100 years Independence Day, either 1 or 2. This is going to happen. For all these things, India is having a demographic advantage. No other country is having. This is where I want to emphasize. Minor differences will be there, but broad principles, how to empower people of India is very important.
Okay.
That is what I wanted to. Never I opposed anything which is good for the nation.
Well, Chandrababu Naiduji, I know this is not the podium for the political questions on whether you regret leaving the NDA or your prospective conversation with the Jan Sena, so I'm going to leave it at that. Really appreciate you joining us, and thank you so much for waiting and addressing this forum, which is beaming across 40 news channels as we speak. Can we give him a big round of applause, please?
एक ऐसा पहुंचाए। आप सब जुड़े, आप सबका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
Thank you for that, Chandrababu Naidu ji, and thank you for that, Rishabh. We have a very short address now, a very special address. Speaking to us via this video message will be Mr. Anurag Thakur, India's current Minister of Information and Broadcasting. Mr. Thakur is known for his hardcore stance of national interest above everything else. Anurag Thakur, the Honourable Minister, has repeatedly warned us about the dangers of exaggerated news. And we know Indian media is uniquely placed to present a global template for diverse growth of the media. And though the media in India is served best when it remains free from any government control, it is incumbent upon the government to ensure, at one hand, a level playing field, while at the same time giving space to new age media innovation and entrepreneurship. Addressing this challenge of balancing the delivery of traditional news with maintaining the sanctity of information disseminated via new and upcoming media, Mr. Anurag Thakur will talk about the administrative challenges of his ministry and the various perspectives in Indian media, which is kept in mind as India embraces digitization. An address by the Honourable Minister for Information and Broadcasting.
नमस्कार। न्यूज़ ब्रॉडकास्टर्स फेडरेशन के सभी सदस्यों को मेरी ओर से दीपावली की, धनतेरस की बहुत बहुत बधाई, शुभकामनाएं। 55 से ज़्यादा सदस्य, और चाहे रीजनल हो या नेशनल हो, एक बहुत बड़ी भूमिका देश में निभा रहे हैं। और किसी भी लोकतंत्र के लिए वहाँ का मीडिया एक बहुत बड़ा, एक ऐसा प्लेटफॉर्म होता है जहाँ से सही खबर सही समय पर जन जन तक पहुँचाने का काम किया जाता है। और जैसा मैं जानता हूँ, न्यूज़ ब्रॉडकास्टर्स फेडरेशन ने न केवल खबर पहुँचाने का काम किया है, आपके सदस्यों ने जन जन तक सही खबर भी सही समय तक पहुंचाई है। और आज मैं आप सबको धन्यवाद भी करना चाहता हूं कि आप सब एक प्लेटफॉर्म पर इकट्ठे हुए हैं और इस लोकतंत्र को और मजबूत करने में मदद करेंगे। जन योजनाएं जो हैं हमारी, जनता के लाभ के लिए उनको आप जन जन तक पहुंचाते हैं। और यही नहीं, जहां पर चुनौतियां हैं, जहां पर सरकार को घेरने का काम है या जगाने का काम है, आप वहां भी पीछे नहीं रहते। एक सजग प्रहरी के रूप में आप लोग काम कर रहे हैं, मैं इसके लिए आपको बधाई देता हूं। मैं क्षमा चाहता हूं, मैं व्यक्तिगत रूप से नहीं रह पाया। मैंने अर्नब गोस्वामी जी से कहा था कि मैं आपके सभी सदस्यों से मिलना चाहूँगा, लेकिन हिमाचल में चुनाव है और आज नामांकन में मुझे 5 स्थानों पर रहना था, मैं नहीं आ पाया। लेकिन जब भी आपकी भविष्य में बैठक होगी, मैं उसका हिस्सा बनना चाहूँगा। 2 बातें मैं यहाँ पर रखना चाहता हूँ कि इन्फोडेमिक, ये पेंडेमिक के समय कहा गया, और ये भारत ने दुनिया भर में एक बड़ी चुनौती के रूप में देखने को मिला कि सही खबर की बजाय एक फैब्रिकेटेड खबर के कारण लोगों की जानें तक चली गई। ये दुष्प्रचार जो है, ये सरकार को ही नहीं, समाज को भी बहुत नुकसान पहुंचाता है। मैं आशा करता हूं आप इन फैब्रिकेटेड और फेक न्यूज़ पर रोक लगाएंगे, और जैसे पीआईबी फैक्ट चेक करता है कि फर्जी खबर पर हम लोगों को जानकारी भी देते हैं और आगे भी देंगे। अगर फर्जी खबर को आप भी रोक लगाने का प्रयास करेंगे तो अच्छा होगा। मैं आपको विश्वास दिलाता हूं, सरकार की ओर से अगर आपको कुछ भी चाहिए हो, हम वो करने का प्रयास करेंगे। सेवा ब्रॉडकास्ट पोर्टल की अगर मैं बात करूं, अब ऑनलाइन ही आपको सब कुछ जानकारी भी मिलती है, आप एप्लीकेशन भी डाल सकते हैं, आप किसी को दफ्तर आने की जरूरत नहीं। हमने इसको सरल और सुलभ करने का काम किया है। टेक्नोलॉजी पर हमने नए नए कदम उठाए हैं। मैं आपके सुझाव आमंत्रित करता हूं, क्या और बदलाव आप हमारी पॉलिसीज में, नीतियों में देखना चाहते हो? भारत कंटेंट का हब कैसे बने, न्यूज़ का हब कैसे बने, और भारत जहां अन्य क्षेत्रों में एक लीडर के रूप में उभर रहा है, इस नए भारत में मेरे मीडिया के भाई ब्रॉडकास्टर्स भारत को एक लीडिंग रोल में कैसे ला सकते हैं? कृपया करके आप अपने सुझाव भी दें और आइए इकट्ठे मिलकर भारत को इस क्षेत्र में भी लीडर बनाएं। टेक्नोलॉजी हो, सॉफ्टवेयर हो, प्रेजेंटर हो, न्यूज़ रिपोर्टर हो, या आपकी तरह मीडिया ऑनर्स हों, आइए भारत को दुनिया के सर्वश्रेष्ठ देशों में न्यूज़ ब्रॉडकास्टिंग में अव्वल दर्जे पर पहुंचाएं। आप सब जुड़े, आप सबका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। भविष्य में व्यक्तिगत रूप से मिलेंगे भी, तब के लिए शुभकामनाएं। दीपावली की बहुत बहुत बधाई।
On to our next session then, Future of News, News Beyond Luchins. As Indian media positions itself as an equal in the globalized world, it's important to self-reflect, be open to external scrutiny, and ask itself if it is taking all the stakeholders along in the journey. Now, the big question that the media needs to implore is whether or not it has done justice to mirror the aspirations of India beyond the 8 mega metro cities. Now, is there a narrative that caters and echoes the walls of the Lutyens circle, or is it investing in the editorial beyond the big cities of the country?
Absolutely, that certainly is the big question that we must ask. And it's time for editorials to set agendas. It's time for editorials and editorial teams cutting across the various gamuts of the media to invest in editorials beyond big cities. It's time for them to serve the news for the viewer at large, wherever they may be. Reimagining news is the need of the hour, with a pan-India view on issues that make a difference to the public at large. That certainly is the need of the hour, Krishna. And to discuss this, we do have a very, very special panel with us today.
Absolutely.
In fact, I will request our teams to also bring Rajya Sabha Member of Parliament and BJP senior leader who has arrived. Let's quickly try and bring him also into our main hall over here. Sudhanshu Trivedi ji. We have Rajya Sabha Member of Parliament and senior leader of the BJP, Sudhanshu Trivedi ji, joining us for this special session. We also have Samajwadi Party National Spokesperson Ghanshyam Tiwari live with us today at the NBF National Conclave themed Future of News. We also have, in fact, CPI senior leader Atul Anjan with us as well. Today we're privileged to have three very, very experienced politicians, three very, very experienced and erudite speakers from three different political parties, of course. And moderating this session will be Zarir Hussain of News Live. And of course, remember, it certainly is going to be a very, very interesting and important session. Let's first, though, before we hear the live conversation on Future of News, News Beyond Lutyens, play out an AV on the theme of the session.
It is time to look beyond the confines of the national capital. It is time to recognize the India story is scripted beyond just Delhi. It is time for an appraisal. It is time for news broadcasters to look beyond investing in big cities. Has the news media got its focus right? Is it time to move on and reimagine news coverage from a pan-India lens? Discussing this and much more at the NBF National Conclave is an esteemed panel on the theme Future of News, News Beyond Lutyens.
Let's welcome them with a loud round of applause. Let's please have on stage now Rajya Sabha Member of Parliament and Senior Leader of the BJP, Sudhanshu Trivedi ji. Dr. Trivedi, please come on to the stage. We also request SP National Spokesperson Ghanshyam Tiwari to join us.
As well. Please come on stage, sir.
Atul Anjan, Senior Leader of the CPI, could we please also have you on stage? And the moderator is also with us, Mr. Hussain of News Live. Let's get you on stage as well, sir. And we are, of course, going to hand over the floor to Mr. Hussain.
And the rest of the gentlemen as well.
Yes. Over to you. Let's take this conversation
all yours.
forward.
A very good evening to all of you. That has been always the grouse that news beyond Lutyens. That has been always the grouse from, say, people in the east, northeast, and down south. And I think in this just about an hour back, it has already been deliberated at length. Assam Chief Minister Dr. Himanta Biswa Sarma has clearly spelled out how the media, Lutyens media, has seen the Northeast or has covered the Northeast. And a little while back, Y.S. Sharmila has expressed her anger and dismay that her 2,000 odd Padyatra has not been covered well. I would like to ask before that just one small thing that a friend of mine told me. He's a software engineer working in one of the top MNCs in Bangalore. And in their cafeteria, there were 3 television news channels on display. 2 were in English and 1 in Kannada. And in all those channels, there were Mumbai floods being shown. He said that I've got full sympathy and I really sympathize with the people out there that are facing the hardships. But he asked me, we face about a month of floods in Assam every year, annual feature. But why don't we get the coverage? As a journalist, he had asked me. And honestly speaking, I didn't have much answer to that. So I'm looking for an answer. And as our friends out there said that there has to be some agenda set by the Lutyens media. The media editorial decisions has to be made. So let me begin by asking Mr. Ghanshyam Tiwari, a young politician. You have taken part in a lot of debates, but I'm very curious to know, have you ever taken part in any discussion related to Northeast, or just because I come from Assam? So I'm very interested to know, have you ever taken part as a national spokesperson in some discussion in a mainstream media on the Northeast?
Good evening, friends. Thank you so much for NBF, its organizers, Arnab, and other esteemed members of NBF team for inviting us here. And let me start by paying my prayers to the late Netaji. There is a prayer that is held across Uttar Pradesh for his departed soul. As far as your question is concerned, I think let's talk from the moment right now. In 2022, this is in the last 6 years of my being on television, I have participated in the least number of debates. And the reason is that I very vocally told people who would invite, people who invite guest coordinators here, that I don't participate in Hindu-Muslim debates. That reduces 70% of debates that happen on television channel. I don't participate in debates ki Modi ji mahan hai. That reduces another 20% of debates on Indian national television channels. And then the remaining 10% of debates that exist, you can define whether they represent Northeast or whether they represent Tamil Nadu, whether they represent Andhra Pradesh, Telangana. My father served Air Force. I grew up traveling across the country, largely living in southern states. And even the Doordarshan at that time would cover the entire nation. The CSDS has today released the survey of who are the viewers of various news channels. It is absolutely clear and that in this version of news is a business. It's a business where advertisement is played out. You have to ask who the advertiser is. You will play out an advertisement as per your viewers. If more than 50% of viewers of a channel, as the CSDS Lok Niti survey, are of one leaning, then you advertise products for that leaning. Now the question is, what is getting advertised? As I said, 70% Hindu-Muslim debates. Who wants to advertise Hindu-Muslim debates? There's no journalist here who will say that prior to 2014, every week they will do 3 or 4 Hindu-Muslim debates. What happened? That after 2014, they are forced to do every week 3 or 4 Hindu-Muslim debates. So if the advertisement becomes the idea of conflict in society, the advertisement becomes not the price of milk in Delhi or the fact that in an exam, you tell me, sir, if a government organizes the exam, is an exam, and 100 students apply for it, what is failure? If 40 students do not even reach exam centers. In Uttar Pradesh, when the media played its usual agenda, 36 lakh students applied for an exam. In a government, we are talking about Modi ji giving some job bonanza. 36 lakh people. Do you know how many people did not reach the center? More than 16 lakh people did not reach the center. So we don't know what the agenda is, but we know who the advertiser is. And for that, I have brought the newspaper. This is Indian Express, one of the more centered newspapers. Look at the Indian Express. The one that fell right now is economy, by the way. That's how limited the economy is. This is the first page of Indian Express. So when news platforms become businesses that advertise, you must ask who the advertiser is, and that will tell you what the news is going to be. Thank you.
Sudhanshu Trivedi, I remember, Mizoram Chief Minister Zoramthanga, he very articulately described, saying that New Delhi only listens to the sound of bullets, because at that time insurgency was at its peak. But now with insurgency on the downslide, things are a little bit looking up. But let me ask you, do you agree to the fact that the more we are away from, the farthest from Delhi, the coverage in terms of the media coverage gets lesser? That's why Sharmila a few minutes back had complained. So do you agree to that fact that Delhi mainstream media cannot see beyond Delhi in terms of news coverage?
Actually, the problem with Lutyens zone was not geographical distancing. It was a consistent distancing from the soul of India.
Mindset?
I am just telling you, if there is something in Northeast happening which is having a potential of having a negative impact on the national consciousness or national integrity of India, then it's a news. And even if something happening in just 50 kilometers away from Delhi in a village which is having potential of putting a negative impact on the social fabric of India or the national pride of India, it's a news. But if something positive happening, it's not a news. That's why I want to put forth a fact. He was asking about the advertisement and funds and others. I would just like to say, now look at the decades 60s, 70s and 80s when Lutyens zone has reached to its zenith. What was the sources? Mitrokin's archive, KGB and the World Part 2. The details are there. Yuri Bachmanev, who was here, a KGB agent who was working here as a journalist, now he has disclosed what was the sources and how at the time the media and those who were considering themselves as an intellectual stalwart. I am not disrespecting anybody, but quote unquote in the words of Yuri Bachmanev, he was saying they were the useful idiots for us. It was his word. Because we were just watching that how useful he can be. For which agenda? He said that he was given an agenda to destroy the Indian culture. Though he subsequently became admirer of that. And that's why, if I want to say 1975 during emergency, I'm not having that type of memory. But hardly Lutyens media was taking any initiative in a movement against emergency. But that created a history. Now, from my memory, late 80s, entire Lutyens media was against BJP and BJP kept rising. 89 we got 86, बस हो गया, इसके बाद नहीं. 91, 120, अरे बस maximum हो गया, इसके आगे नहीं. 196, 190, हो गया, इसके आगे नहीं. Entire Lutyens media was against Bala Saheb Thackeray in the decade of 90s. He kept on rising. सब कहते रहे बीजेपी की सरकार नहीं बनेगी Lutyens media में. We formed the government. Entire decade of 2000, मोदी जी के खिलाफ, मोदी जी बढ़ते रहे, मोदी जी कभी नहीं आएंगे, आ गए. एक बार हमारा भी साथ दिया था. 2004 इंडिया शाइनिंग और हम नहीं आए. तो नाउ इट इज फॉर लुटियंस मीडिया टू इंट्रोस्पेक्ट कि आपके पास वो कौन सी जादू की छड़ी है कि आप देख ही नहीं पाते हैं, या जो आप देखते हैं वो हमेशा गलत ही देखते हैं. दिस इज द बेसिक प्रॉब्लम दैट दे हैव नाउ स्टक इनटू एन एरा व्हिच इज ऑफ pre-2000. So I would like to conclude with a sentence. After we first time got a clear majority on 16th of May 2014, so I am quoting 18th May 2014, London's, which was Guardian, Sunday Guardian of London, because Lutyens media respects the foreign media. Sunday Guardian of London has said that 16th of May 2014 should be considered as a date on which Britishers finally left India. Because from 1947 onwards, in the various systems, thought process, all things were going on mostly which were the carrier of the British colonial legacy. For the first time, that type of organization has got the power which has no connection with the previous British colonial legacy, and Lutyens zone was nothing but a hangover of the previous British Raj, and when the Raj Path has become Kartavya Path. So I think that Lutyens should try also to relook at your own path.
Atul Anjanji, a few minutes back, as I have been repeatedly telling, Sharmila ji had also said the same thing. South, then East, Northeast. Sikkim generally comes to the forefront only when there is a Doklam-like standoff. Arunachal Pradesh, Assam Chief Minister has rightly said a few moments ago, saying that only when there is a standoff that the media shows or covers it. But when there are something, the Indian Army does something very good, it's never been projected. So what, according to you, you have been such a seasoned senior politician, you must have seen this, or you must have observed this kind of disparity.
देखिए, भारतीय समाज बहुत विविधताओं का समाज है. Sorry, I'm speaking in a language which is known and spoken by the overwhelming majority of this country, and I think the message of this NBF must go to the maximum number of people. So I'm using that in. You should not take it that I am very chauvinistic about my Hindi language, but I should also say, don't be very, 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 very dear to that language, which is an alien language and is spoken by only 3 crore of people of this country. But anyway, जब हम गुस्से में भारतीय आ जाता है तो अंग्रेजी बोलने लगता है. भारतीय जब गुस्से में आता है तो अंग्रेजी में बोलने लगता है. लेकिन समस्या समाज की ये है, समस्या समाज की ये है, भारत के अंदर जितने राज्य हैं उन राज्यों की समस्याओं को भारत का न्यूज़पेपर, भारत के इलेक्ट्रॉनिक मीडिया कवर करता है. एक जमाना था जब टीवी नहीं था. कौन जानता था फिजो को? कौन जानता था नागालैंड के आंदोलन को? कौन जानता था आईएम को? कौन जानता था लालडेंगा को? ये प्रिंट मीडिया था. अब आप कह देंगे कि वो बिल्कुल किनारे पर था. नहीं, सारे देश जानते थे, वो मीडिया के थ्रू जानते थे और बड़ी एक्सक्लूसिव स्टोरी आती थी. एक ज़माना था जब अखबारों को पढ़ते थे लोग, समाचार पत्रों को पहले पेज पर पढ़ते थे. ये क्रिकेट में हो गया, ये हॉकी में हो गया, दुनिया के पैमाने पर ये हो गया, भारत का विकास दर ये हो गया, प्रधानमंत्री ने कहा. आज पहले पेज पर एक अधनंगी लड़की, कहाँ है महिला वो तमाम कार्यकर्ता, एक अधनंगी लड़की मर्सिडीज के सामने खड़ी होकर के प्रचार कर रही है कि 30 लाख रुपए इस वक्त मर्सिडीज पर हमने रिलीफ दे दिया है, आओ लूट लो मर्सिडीज को. कहाँ है वो लोग? फर्स्ट पेज का वही हाल है, सेकंड पेज का वही हाल है, थर्ड पेज में अद्धा जो छपता है उसका भी हाल है, फोर्थ पेज में न्यूज है कि रणबीर कपूर कटरीना कैफ के घर से निकल गए 4 कॉलम के. तो आप देखिए ना क्या है स्थिति. हम लोग जब राजनीति में, स्टूडेंट पॉलिटिक्स में थे, ये हमारे छोटे भाई की तरह, बहुत स्नेह है मेरा इनके प्रति, दोनों के प्रति. मैं यूनिवर्सिटी स्टूडेंट यूनियन का लखनऊ का प्रेसिडेंट था. मैं एक प्राइमरी के स्कूल से, गांव से पढ़ के आया था, अंग्रेजी नहीं जानता था, और अंग्रेजी न जानने की वजह से मैं चेन्नई के रेलवे स्टेशन पर जूतों से पीटा गया था. जूतों से, एक आध बार नहीं, कई बार पीटा गया था. सुनीता सत्यार्थी जयपुर विश्वविद्यालय छात्र संघ की अध्यक्ष थी स्टूडेंट यूनियन की, वो हिंदी बोल रही थी, वो पीटी गई थी. वो दौर था कुछ और, वो दौर था कुछ और. फिर मैंने अंग्रेजी सीखने की कोशिश की. मेरे गुरुजनों ने मुझे सिखाया, मेरे परिवार के, मेरे माता पिता ने मुझे सिखाया. लेकिन हम तब पढ़ते थे तो अंग्रेजी का अखबार पढ़ते थे, टाइम्स ऑफ इंडिया, तो देखते थे कि इंदर मल्होत्रा ने एडिटोरियल क्या लिखा है, एक्सप्रेस में हरिमोहन कार्लेकर ने क्या लिखा है, गिरिलाल जैन ने क्या लिखा है, प्रभाष जोशी ने क्या लिखा है, नवभारत टाइम्स में राजेंद्र माथुर ने संपादकीय क्या लिखा है. आज तो संपादकीय पढ़ने की ही जरूरत नहीं है. देयर इज नो एडिटोरियल, देयर इज ए प्रोप्राइटोरियल. पढ़ो प्यारे, प्रोप्राइटर क्या कहता है, प्रोप्राइटर क्या कहता है. ये स्थिति जब आ जाए मीडिया की तो क्या करेंगे आप? महत्वपूर्ण खबर 7वें पेज पर चली गई, अगर हेडलाइंस ना हो टेलीविजन के तो टेलीविजन भी देखने लायक नहीं है। बदलो बदलो। आप कह रहे हैं लोगों की गरीबी, गुर्बत, बिहार में क्या है और नॉर्थ ईस्ट में पानी आ गया, सिक्किम इतना खूबसूरत ऑर्गेनिक स्टेट है, उसके बारे में कौन लिख रहा है? कुछ नहीं लिख रहा है। बदलो अपनी जहनियत को। एनबीएफ ने काम किया है, अर्नब जी इस काम को और आगे बढ़ाओ। व्हाट शुड बी द कंटेंट? कंटेंट क्या होना चाहिए? ये पीपल्स ओरिएंटेड कंटेंट होना चाहिए। जनता के सरोकारों का कंटेंट अखबारों में और टेलीविजन के मीडिया में होगी। डेवलपमेंटल स्टोरी होगी या प्रधानमंत्री का चेहरा दिखाया जाएगा? लीडर अपोजिशन की भी बात आएगी कि नहीं है? विपक्ष की बात का स्थान तो मिल ही नहीं रहा अखबारों में। विपक्ष क्या कहता है? लगता है भारत में संसदीय लोकतंत्र का विपक्ष गायब हो चुका है। सरकार चाहती है कि नहीं चाहती है मुझे नहीं मालूम, समाचार पत्र और तमाम लोग तो यही चाहते हैं। सिर्फ मैं एक बात कह करके अपनी बात खत्म करता हूं। बहुत लंबी बात कहने से पहले एक आध शेर कह देने से सारी बात कवर हो जाती है। मशहूर शायरा मीना कुमारी एक बहुत अच्छी अदाकारा भी थी और शायरा भी थी। गुलजार साहब ने उनकी पूरी शायरी को एक डायरी में प्रिंट किया है। उसमें एक जगह लिखा है उन्होंने, मीना कुमारी ने, कि मसर्रत पे रवाज़ों का सख्त पहरा है। आपके रवाज के लिए, आपके रवाज के लिए मीडिया, मसर्रत पे रवाज़ों का सख्त पहरा है। और गरीब आदमी आपको पढ़ता है तो क्या कहता है? मसर्रत के पर रवाज़ों का सख्त पहरा है, न जाने कौन सी उम्मीद पर दिल ठहरा है। और मेरे जैसे लोग ये कहते हैं कि तेरी आंखों में झलकते गम की कसम, ऐ दोस्त दर्द का रिश्ता बहुत गहरा है। इसको समझेगा जिस दिन मीडिया काम बन जाए।
That was Atul Ajat ji in his inimitable style. He had mentioned one very interesting thing, and which I would like to endorse, that this platform has given us, editors like us, a chance to, this is a bridge kind of a thing between the mainstream and the regional media. So thanks very much to Arnab
Can I
for
add one
floating
thing?
this.
What he has said? अब इन्होंने एक शेर कहा है, तो लुटियन जोन वाले जिस जुस्तुजू में अपने दौर में चलते रहे, उनको भी मैं एक शेर में कहना चाहूंगा कि कश्ती भी नहीं बदली, दरिया भी नहीं बदला, पर इन डूबने वालों का जज्बा भी नहीं बदला। है शौक सफर ऐसा, एक उम्र हुई हमने, मंजिल भी नहीं पाई, रास्ता भी नहीं बदला।
वाह, वाह। Again, like, you know, this is turning out to be a shairi kind of a session. But
and one more thing, yes, on the issue of representation of the opposition, sir. Now we are sitting in this era. 2/3 is the representation, yes, on media is of the opposition. Never was when prior to 1998 when BJP first time came in power. और एक दौर तो ऐसा आया था जब पूरी तरीके से मीडिया को रौंद दिया गया था। अब जब आपने कहा तो सबसे बड़े शायर हुए गालिब, उसके बाद हुए शेख मोहम्मद इब्राहिम ज़ौक़, और उसके अलावा साहिल लुधियानवी। तो उस जमाने में तो आपको ध्यान होगा, आप लोगों की तो युवावस्था की बात है, हम लोग होश संभालने से पहले की बात, क्या कहा जाता था इमरजेंसी के बारे में? ऐसा कंट्रोल कर लिया गया कि अब तो गालिब, ज़ौक़, साहिर, मीर सरकारी और शायरी की हो गई तासीर सरकारी। यानी सरकारी तासीर में लिखना पड़ता था। और आज प्रधानमंत्री जी को आलोचना छोड़िए, कटु आलोचना छोड़िए, घटिया से घटिया शब्दों का प्रयोग करके, मौत की कामना करके, मौत का प्रकार बताकर यह कहा जाता है अभिव्यक्ति की स्वतंत्रता नहीं है। तो मेरे विचार से those who are trying to project these type of narrative from the Lutyens zone should again try to introspect. That's why they are unable to understand exactly the place where they are standing.
Yeah.
I think one point I just want to mention it here. In 1975, when the emergency was imposed, ये हिंदुस्तान में ही था, भारत में ही था संभव, जब तमाम अखबारों ने एडिटोरियल्स ब्लैंक कर दिए थे। भूल जाते हैं आप, विरोध का क्षण उस वक्त भी हिंदुस्तान के पत्रकारों में था। निखिल चक्रवर्ती, हिरण्मय कालेलकर, इंडियन एक्सप्रेस, रामनाथ गोयनका, टाइम्स ऑफ इंडिया, इंदर मल्होत्रा, वो भूल जाते हैं। प्रतिरोध की शक्ति तब थी, लेकिन आज हो तुमको जो पसंद वही बात कहेंगे, तुम दिन को रात कहो रात कहेंगे.
I think it is important that this term Lutyens media is reflected upon in the light of what happened in the most terrible years that India has faced in the last 3 years, especially COVID. How did Lutyens, or whatever you call, I prefer the call somebody made, that lumpet media. How was it covered? Who told that Tablighi Jamaat was responsible for COVID? How was it covered? When the entire world was fighting that how should governments respond to COVID, we made it a communal virus. Who did it? Can anyone answer? Can anyone appreciate that? Did not minister and spokesperson, Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh, participate in that debate? They fanned those discussions. The anchors, whether you call it Lumpert, Lutyens, whatever you call it, they fanned those debates. Then nobody was ready to talk about the migrants, but we are ready to speak about Riya Chakravarti. Who was distracting the nation in crisis? I believe that Lutyens media and this term is used to distract people. Use of history is a way to distract people because you don't want to tell that India ranks poorly on hunger index. You don't want to acknowledge that youth in India today is unable to find a job. You don't want to acknowledge that today people are taking away their children from private schools because they are not able to pay fees. When the news become focused on what the advertisers want the nation to hear, the responsibility, just like the luminaries that were talked about, the responsibility of the news goes back to the citizens. I am very hopeful. I am very hopeful that the youth, a lot of them sitting here, the youth in colleges, even those who are getting used to fake news, they are going to become used to information and will be able to decipher what is real news. Today, it is not the media that is defining the frontier of what reaches the citizens. It is individual students, individual people who read and share among their own social media, their own WhatsApp groups. I believe 10 years down the line, when we speak, these leaders may not be there, but we will see a rise of a new citizenry who's much more informed and who take the responsibility of those editors in 1970s who took the responsibility to keep the nation informed. That new citizenry is what gives me hope. I don't have hope in the media that communalized the virus, in the media that went after Riya Chakravarti, in the media that rejects data in the face of reality, and in the media that chooses only to cover what their advertisers want to be covered.
I think Sudhanshu Trivedi will respond to Ghanshyam Tewari.
Actually, what happened now, the democracy is really taking shape. He's asked a lot of things about what happened previously, but I want to ask, how was the reporting in 1990 Kashmir massacre? What was the reporting here? And what was the tone and tenor of reporting? So I just want to say India got independence in 47, but real democracy came in 77 when the parties have started changing the government. Otherwise there was only one party. So democracy started in 77. In 90s, what happened? The entire intellectual establishment and media was controlled by one thought. There is no scope of other. Monopolies and restrictive trade practices. You have heard about that. In 90s, the vernacular media became free from the clutches. And now, the national media is becoming free from the clutches of the monopoly of one thought, one and exclusive copyright of only one set of people. That's why the organizations like NBF are coming. ये और कुछ नहीं है जनाब, जागीरदारी राजे महाराजों की चली गई थी 47 में, तो उनके दिल में भी दर्द हुआ था. जब 77 में इमरजेंसी के बाद सरकार चली गई थी तो भी मोनोपोली खत्म हुई थी. अब वो मोनोपोली खत्म हो रही है, डेमोक्रेसी आ रही है, दूसरे थॉट को भी दीजिए. और मैं इनकी बात से अच्छा मानता हूं, ये तो हार्वर्ड के पढ़े हुए हैं. अब प्रॉब्लम जानते क्या हो गई है? प्रीवियसली आपने अच्छा कहा, एडिटोरियल्स में लिखा जाता था, फिर मैं कह रहा हूं वो तो एडवर्टोरियल्स होते थे, और वो भी कहां से स्पॉन्सर्ड होते थे. मैं और भी 3-4 किताबें बता दूंगा, अब सब डिटेल में कैसे कैसे क्या क्या लिखवाया जाता था. भारत से ही नहीं, बाहर से भी लिखवाया जाता था. वो सारी बातें तो अपनी जगह, परंतु अब परिस्थिति में बदलाव आया है. टेक्नोलॉजी ने मार दिया है साहब. अब तो सबके हाथ में मोबाइल है. If anybody wants to verify any fact, I can say even by using internet, at least up to 90% he or she can reach to the truth. अब बड़ा मुश्किल है इस बात को कंट्रोल करना. फॉर एग्जाम्पल 2014 से पहले बाबा साहब अंबेडकर की बुक थॉट्स ऑन पाकिस्तान वॉज वर्चुअली आउट ऑफ इंटायर अंबेडकर साहित्य. आपको मिलती नहीं कहीं, यहां खूब खोज डालते नहीं मिलती, बट कोलंबिया यूनिवर्सिटी में थी, अब वहां से अवेलेबल है. अब तो पीडीएफ भी है, जो आदमी चाहे पढ़ सकता है. दिस डेमोक्रेसी इज क्रिएटिंग रफल्स एंड दे आर नॉट रेडी टू एक्सेप्ट दैट देयर एरा हैज गॉन. लाइक राजे रजवाड़ों का एरा 47 में गया था, 75 साल के बाद इनका एरा जा रहा है, जिसे वो एक्सेप्ट करने को तैयार नहीं है. इसलिए ओपन माइंडेड होकर. और लास्ट में आपने बात कही कि कंट्री के डेवलपमेंट और इसकी बात डिस्कस होती है, तो मैं पूछना चाहता हूं, अगर हम 5th लार्जेस्ट इकोनॉमी बने, अभी आईएमएफ की रिपोर्ट के अनुसार हम 6.1% ग्रोथ, बहुत ज्यादा नहीं है, बट हाईएस्ट अमंग ऑल मेजर इकोनॉमीज ऑफ द वर्ल्ड. वही सीएमआई का डाटा जिसको 2 महीने पहले कोट करके कहते थे कि साहब हमारी जो बेरोजगारी है वो मैक्सिमम है 8.4%. दैट सेम सीएमआई हैज सेड इन द मंथ ऑफ सितंबर इट हैज कम टू 6.4%. एंड आई वांट टू से एन नंबर ऑफ डिबेट्स यू हैव सीन. 50 साल की सबसे बड़ी बेरोजगारी, 50 साल की सबसे बुरी अर्थव्यवस्था, 50 साल का सब कुछ. यू हैव हर्ड दिस फेज. अगर ये जमाना नहीं होता तो ये 50 साल लोगों को सच लगता. अब भूल गए लोग. एनीबडी कैन चेक 1991 डिवैल्यूएशन ऑफ द रूपी, सोना गिरवी, फॉरेन एक्सचेंज रिजर्व लेस देन 1%, बेरोजगारी की दर 14%, सॉरी रेट ऑफ इन्फ्लेशन 14%, और जाने क्या क्या 2% ग्रोथ रेट रहती थी, सब कुछ रहता था. एनीथिंग कैन बी चेक्ड. सो दैट monopolistic control is being diluted and the democratic forces emerging in the field of media, which is becoming a difficult thing to digest. Who are considering their feudal fiefdom feeling of controlling the intellectual establishment of India.
Yeah, just let me put on record, if it will be unfair if I don't put on record. Of late, things are beginning to look up, and most of the television channels are covering East and the Northeast and South. And I think Arnab has done one good thing, is that he has been since his channel is covering East or Northeast a little bit aggressively, other channels are following suit because they cannot afford to ignore once one channel covers that particular area aggressively. So definitely things are beginning to look up, and one must say that it's a little bit, news is going beyond Lutyens to an extent, but yes, we need to see more. Anjanji, just things have to change, isn't it?
It is very much required. You are talking about the MRTP and other things. In the media, पहले ज़माने में टाइम्स ऑफ इंडिया ग्रुप होता था, ट्रिब्यून का ग्रुप होता था, अजीत का ग्रुप होता था, लोकमत ग्रुप हुआ करता था, सकाल ग्रुप हुआ करता था, बिहार का 2 अखबार होता था, लखनऊ के अंदर स्वतंत्र भारत और पायनियर का ग्रुप होता था. आज क्या हो गया टेलीविजन में? एक कंपनी, अर्नब जी, 60 और 65 टेलीविजन चैनल्स को कंट्रोल कर रहे हैं. इज इट डिसेंट्रलाइजेशन? एक बाबूजी सभी के मालिक बन गए, दूसरे उसमें आ गए. ये मोनोपोलाइजेशन है ना. और जब मोनोपोलाइजेशन होगा तो खबरें भी मोनोपोलाइज तरीके से आएंगी, उसके अंदर कैरेक्टर नहीं रहेगा. ये एक बड़ा खतरा है. मेरे दोस्त, मेरे छोटे भाई ने डेमोक्रेसी की बात कही. इससे पहले डेमोक्रेसी नहीं थी देश में. हिंदुस्तान में डेमोक्रेसी थी. आज पिछले 10-15 वर्षों से देख रहे हैं कि पार्लियामेंट के सेशंस घटते चले जा रहे हैं. मिनिमम 100 डेज के पार्लियामेंट के सेशन होते थे, असेंबलीज के सेशन होते थे. 3 दिन के अंदर बजट सेशन होके, अभी उत्तर प्रदेश का बजट सेशन, मध्य प्रदेश का बजट सेशन 3 दिन में, राजस्थान का बजट सेशन 3 दिन में खत्म हो गया. देयर इज नो डिबेट. ये डेमोक्रेसी है. इशू वाइज चर्चा नहीं होगी, हेड वाइज चर्चा नहीं होगी. कि बाल कल्याण पे कितना खर्च होगा, शिक्षा पर कितना खर्च होगा, स्वास्थ्य पर कितना खर्च होगा, यहां खर्च गलत है इसको घटाइए वहां बढ़ाइए। ये डेमोक्रेसी है। जवाहरलाल नेहरू का वो शब्द अच्छा नहीं लगता है लोगों को, लेकिन वो सही है। फ्रीडम इज इन पेरिल, डेमोक्रेसी इज इन पेरिल, डिफेंड विथ योर ऑल माइट। आज जरूरत इस बात की है कि जमहूरियत को बचाया जाए। बोलने की आजादी नहीं है, बोलने की आजादी। मैं जिस राज्य से आता हूं अब बोलने की आजादी नहीं है, प्रदर्शन करने की आजादी नहीं है, घूमने की आजादी नहीं है। घूमिए आप, लेकिन विरोध और प्रतिरोध के एक शब्द सुनने को तैयार नहीं है लोग। ये डेमोक्रेसी है। तो अखबारों की भी, मीडिया की भी डेमोक्रेसी और मीडिया का भी जनतंत्र, मीडिया की भी आजादी खतरे में है। हम सबको मिलकर के वो एनबीएफ को इस सवाल पर सभी लोगों को, सुधांशु जी जैसे लोग और घनश्याम तिवारी जैसे लोग, हमारे जैसे लोग और आप जैसे लोग जो आज़ादी का मतलब समझते हैं, किसी पार्टी में हो, ये आज़ादी चली जाएगी तो न बोलने का अधिकार है, न रहने का अधिकार है। इस आज़ादी की हिफाजत के लिए अपने दल में, अपने समाज में, अपनी जगह पर, अपने न्यूज़ चैनल में जो भी स्पेस मिले उसमें अपनी आवाज़ बुलंद करें। यही हमारी राष्ट्रभक्ति है और यही राष्ट्रवाद है।
Absolutely, absolutely. Like, we are running short of time, and we sincerely hope that news will go beyond Delhi, beyond Lutyens, and every region in this country will get their adequate space and share. So I think, like, we'll have to. One of the wishes, sir, was Jawaharlal Nehru. Sure.
कुछ परिवर्तन हुए होंगे। नहीं, मैं अब याद इसलिए कर रहा हूं कि अब कहने को तो कुछ लोग कह रहे थे कि मतवाले बेकार के थे, चंद्रशेखर आजाद और भगत सिंह को भी गाली देने वाले पैदा हैं। आइए उनके साथ हम भी अपनी आवाज बुलंद करें, हमारे देश की आजादी का संघर्ष नया स्वरूप लेगा। चलिए जिंदाबाद।
वैसे आपने एक अच्छी बात कही, चंद्रशेखर आजाद भगत सिंह जी को टेररिस्ट लिखने वाले कौन थे? यही जेएनयू ब्रांड विपिन चंद्रा अपनी किताब में लिख दिए थे, रेवोल्यूशनरी टेररिस्ट। और जब यदवेंद्र सिंह संधू उनके भतीजे ने इस विषय को उठाया, 2016 में हमने पार्लियामेंट में उठाया, तो जानते क्या जवाब दिए? वो अगले वाले एडिशन में हटा देंगे, वो उस ढंग में नहीं प्रयोग होता था। और वन मोर थिंग ऑन द रिमोट इश्यूज, नॉर्थ ईस्ट में बोडो प्रॉब्लम सॉर्ट आउट हुई, सेटलमेंट हो गया, एमिकेबल सोल्यूशन। देन इवन द बोडो लैंग्वेज इशू हैज बीन आल्सो सेटल्ड। दे हैव आल्सो एग्रीड दैट द बोडो लैंग्वेज विल बी इंप्लीमेंटेड एंड विद द देवनागरी स्क्रिप्ट। किसने अप्रिशिएट किया कि सेटल डाउन हो गया? नहीं। ऑन द कॉन्ट्रेरी, एक दूसरी बात बताऊं, आपने कहा अगर विधानसभा में खड़े होकर कोई कुछ बवाल कर देगा, बहुत हेडलाइन बनेगी, लुटियंस में बड़ा चर्चा का विषय बनेगा। बट इसी देश में मार्च 2006 केरल, बहुत दूर है ना, केरल असेंबली 1998 कोयंबटूर ब्लास्ट के मेन एक्यूज टेररिस्ट अब्दुल नसीर मदनी जो तमिलनाडु की जेल में था, उसको छोड़ दिया जाए, इसके लिए स्पेशल सेशन ऑफ केरल असेंबली ब्रॉट। ऑल 117 MLAs, ऑल कांग्रेस, ऑल कम्युनिस्ट वोटेड इन ब्लॉक इन फेवर ऑफ दैट, नो डिस्कशन। एक आतंकवादी के पक्ष में प्रस्ताव पारित हो गया। कभी किसी ने चर्चा सुनी? यहां यही था, कौन सी चीज दबानी है, कौन सी चीज उठानी है। वो मोनोपोली खत्म हो गई, क्योंकि सर उस जमाने में सबका मालिक एक था, वो एक ही तय करता था दिल्ली में बैठकर कि क्या छपना है। क्योंकि उस दौर में एक और भी अच्छाई थी, वो रिपोर्टर जाता था, डेस्क पे जाता था, डेस्क से एडिटर पे जाता था, रात में अखबार छपता था, सुबह डिस्ट्रीब्यूट होता था, 12-14 घंटे का वक्त होता था सरकार के पास। और ऐसे भी जर्नलिस्ट रहे जिन्होंने खुद लिखा, खुशवंत सिंह जी जैसे लोग, जिन्होंने कहा कि मेरे ऊपर मुझे सरकार ने, मैंने उनको ये इस चीज में सपोर्ट किया तो मुझे हिंदुस्तान टाइम्स का एडिटर बनाया, मुझे राज्यसभा दी। ये तो ओपनली उन्होंने लिखा हुआ है भाई। और इसलिए आज के जमाने में मौका ही नहीं है, 12 सेकंड में तो न्यूज यहां की वहां चली जाती है। तो अब जो भी आप जिसको भी मालिक कह लें, आज मालिक कोई नहीं, आज मालिक जनता है और मालिक टेक्नोलॉजी।
मैं तो समझता हूं कि 1 मिनट, कई मुख्यमंत्री लोग अपने ऊपर 40-40 मुकदमे हैं, मुख्यमंत्री बन जाएं, सीरियस मुकदमे हैं, हम अपने आप अपने मुकदमे वापस ले लें। ये भी यही है जनतंत्र में, ये भी यही जनतंत्र में होता है। रेवोल्यूशनरी रेवोल्यूशनरी टेररिस्ट, जब लाला लाजपत राय को मार दिया इंपीरियलिस्टों ने, तो कहा यस, HSRA के डॉक्यूमेंट पढ़िए, उन्होंने कहा यस। इसलिए मैं कह रहा हूं कि मेरे पिताजी भी 18 साल उस मूवमेंट में HSRA के जेल में रहे। उन्होंने अपने को कहा यस, वी आर रेवोल्यूशनरी टेररिस्ट, वी आर रेवोल्यूशनरी। छोड़िए उन बातों को, अब क्या होगा क्या नहीं होगा, आज की बात करो, इसकी बात करना छोड़िए। बहस इस बात की नहीं है, बहस इस बात की है कि बिल्ली काली है या सफेद है, इस पर बहस मत करो। बिल्ली चूहा खाती है कि नहीं खाती है, ये सवाल।
वैसे एक बात कह दूं,
और मैं आपसे कहूं 22 करोड़ लोगों ने, 22 करोड़ नौजवानों ने, अभी पार्लियामेंट में जवाब हुआ, अखबारों में नहीं छपा, 22 करोड़ लोगों ने 1,64,000 नौकरियों के लिए अप्लाई किया, कहीं अखबार में नहीं छपा। संसद में केंद्रीय मंत्री जितेंद्र सिंह ने जवाब लिखते हुए कहा कि 1,64,000 नौकरियों के लिए 22 करोड़ नौजवानों ने अप्लाई किया था। छोड़िए,
तो सर 40 IAS की नौकरियों के लिए 5 लाख हर साल अप्लाई करते हैं।
छोड़िए, जाने दीजिए।
देखिए इसी एक लाइन में अच्छे लोग हर पार्टी में होते हैं। अतुल अंजान जी के पिताजी फ्रीडम फाइटर थे, ही इज फ्रॉम ए फ्रीडम फाइटर फैमिली होते हैं। सोमनाथ चटर्जी इनकी पार्टी के नेता थे, उनके पिताजी हिंदू महासभा में थे। अब कई बार क्या होता है, व्यक्ति भटक कर गलत रास्ते पे चला जाता तो भी उसकी अच्छाई नहीं खत्म होती है, अच्छे संस्कार हैं और यह
सावरकर जी 1910 के पहले अच्छे थे, बाद में बदल गए। अच्छी बात है।
वैसे 1910 में कांग्रेस का अध्यक्ष कौन था जब सावरकर को सजा हुई थी? विलियम बैटनबर्न, ब्रिटिश सरकार का सेक्रेटरी।
तो कहा था गौमांस खाना बहुत अच्छा है।
Thank you very much, Atul Anjan ji, Sudhanshu Trivedi ji, Ghanshyam.
Thank you, Sarita.
So much. Very gripping kind of an analysis and observation. Thank you once again for this wonderful discussion.
Thank you, Atul Anjan. Thank you, Mr. Trivedi, and thank you, Ghanshyam. On to our next panel now. We have two very special guests. Narrative setting from a position of strength in the world, which enables the news consumer to access global news media like never before, is as ever challenging issue. Now, India is often painted with racist almost and typecasted views in the global news media. And for a country with an aim to be a global superpower and making leaps and bounds in every industry, it's time for India to set its record straight and no longer be burdened by a stereotyped view of India. We have a very special conversation now with two erudite speakers on this discussion. Mr. Kanchan Gupta, Senior Advisor for the Minister of Information and Broadcasting, and Mr. Pawan Verma, former diplomat, author, columnist. We have Sandeep Unnithan moderating this session. Sandeep, over to you.
Thank you, Niranjan. More than 30 of the world's biggest media companies are in Europe or in the United States, except for 2 each in Japan and China. Now they boast of market capitalizations of trillions of dollars, they have revenues of billions of dollars, and they command global attention and help shape world opinion. Now the Nigerian author Chinua Achebe famously said, and I quote, "Until the lions have their own storytellers, the history of the hunt will always glorify the hunter." Are Indian news consumers hearing the lion's story, or are they still being told the history of the hunt? Joining me to discuss the Indian narrative today is my very distinguished panel. Mr. Verma, you wrote recently how the Nobel Prizes are distinctly Eurocentric, and the fact that the greatest messiah of non-violence ever, Mahatma Gandhi, was never awarded the Nobel Prize. But Dr. Henry Kissinger, who is known for anything but non-violence, got the prize. How does a civilizational state like India deal with this so-called Western objectivity?
Thank you, Sandeep. You cannot deal with this Western subjectivity unless you begin to reappropriate your own sense of culture, history and civilization. And I've said this often, that the success of colonialism is not your physical subjugation only. In fact, that is more easily removed. The success of colonialism is the colonization of your mind. And that takes much longer to erase. It can take decades after political independence. So, therefore, I've written extensively on this subject. I have a book called Becoming Indian, The Unfinished Revolution of Culture and Identity. And I also discuss this in my latest book, The Great Hindu Civilization. That we need to become more confident in our own roots and in a real knowledge of our civilizational legacy, without looking so eagerly for either endorsements from the West, which produce in us either excessive criticism or unnecessary adulation, and learn to make our own decisions objectively.
Mr. Gupta, how does India reappropriate its narrative? How do you define the Indian narrative? You agree with what Verma ji just said?
There is no one single Indian narrative. You have to look at what's the domineering or dominating issue of the day. And the Indian narrative obviously also has to accordingly reshape itself and move forward. I am personally against straitjacketing the Indian narrative into one particular story or storyline. That's what has been done till now. Now, Pawan mentioned about the colonization of the Indian mind, which is true. And one particular book of Pawan's, I have sort of reviewed a few of his books. One particular book, I'm now forgetting the one. Was it The Indian Middle Class or which one? Being Indian, either of the two. And where he addresses this question of how the Indian mind is colonized. And, after the departure of the British, after the end of colonial rule around the world, there was this great surge of post-colonial writing. Now, who were the people doing that post-colonial writing? They were academics with the most colonized minds. So their perception of colonization was entirely shaped by a very Eurocentric view. And that's why that decolonization never really happened. In the previous session, we had a fiery communist telling us how revolution is the path forward. But even communism is a colonial import. It is not something which is indigenous to this land. The political ideologies that existed in India were all colonial products or byproducts across the spectrum. So to look at it from a very narrow perspective that this shall be my narrative, maybe that's not the way forward, because that's the way we were. We have to now skillfully create stories around the new India. It is a new country. Look at the demography of the country, the young Indians. Look at the issues that agitate these young Indians. It's the economy. So we have to craft stories around the Indian economy. The IMF has conceded that we are the only glimmer of hope in a very dark scenario. So the point is that you have to pick and choose your story And you should be in a position to stand up and say, hey, listen, this is my story and you got to hear me out. And to reach that point, you need to be confident, you need to be courageous, you have to have a commitment to India, and you have to have a sense of conviction that this India, this country is now set for bigger things in life.
It's interesting you should mention this because in a couple of the previous sessions we spoke about how well the Indian economy is doing. We've already overtaken Great Britain and very soon we are going to be the third largest economy in the world by the end of this decade. So Mr. Verma, do you think that we are still the subject of a lot of stereotyping by the West? You know, I was reminded of that New York Times cartoon, that very racist cartoon when we launched the Mars mission, we achieved the orbit around Mars, and you had this cartoon on the NYT which showed this Indian farmer with a cow knocking at the doors of these elite space clubs. So you think these kind of stereotypes are still prevalent in the West and it's going to take a while for us to break out of that?
No, some are stereotypes. Some may be too real for us to fully accept. I think we should give up our obsession with the West. The time has come to assert our own identity. Now that is a process. If I could ask, and Kanchan, I would be happy for his reaction. You see, it's a process. In 1947, there was a strong school which believed that the way forward has to be interpreted in terms of Western modernity. I am a great admirer, contrary now to some biases, of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. But in a sense, and I have written about this so I don't need to shy away from stating it publicly, he has written more than once that his impatience about getting rid of the dead wood of the past. He tended to conflate much of the past with superstition and prejudice, rather than understanding that our civilizational legacy has seen peaks of refinement as well, not that it is blemishless, and that there is no point throwing the baby out with the bathwater. So a lot of the history that was written was already tinted by a certain desire to push away from our roots. And that needs to be interrogated, rightly. Again, there was an attempt, and probably well-intentioned, given the background of 1947 and the partition, and our conscious adoption of a multicultural, plural and secular state, of portraying, for instance, the Islamic period of our history in a manner where it almost seemed that the invaders came in a tourist bus and offered some biryani here and we gave them some laddus and a Ganga Jamuni Tehzeeb built. The truth is, this kind of glossing over historical narratives creates its own backlash. We must accept the extent of damage to the civilizational legacy of this country until then by the damage to our temples, to artifacts and to centers of learning. I mean, Nalanda burned for 1 year after it was set ablaze. I mean, the Nalanda library, it was so rich with manuscripts. Having said that, now this is where I'm coming to the point where we need the right balance. You have to acknowledge it, but you have not to allow today the acrimonies of the past to be resurfaced with an attempt to correct history by force. You can't do it. You must accept it, move on. South Africa set up the Truth and Reconciliation mission and it moved on. That is one. The last point I want to make is that recognizing and reappropriating your past should not lead to chauvinism and over-glorification of the past at the cost of other narratives which are equally important in the making of India. So against neglecting that past, and partly I have written my book, The Great Hindu in Civilization, to acknowledge the sheer profundity and exuberance, intellectual celebration of that period of history. But from there, I say it with respect also, but you cannot go to the Dinanath Bhatra school of history, where you say everything that is happening today was happening in our ancient past. Airplanes, advanced surgery, motor cars were flying, and so on and so forth. I mean, don't trivialize history in an attempt to once again reappropriate the richness of its legacy. We need to stop doing that. And that applies equally to correcting the attempt to gloss over history by then the opposite reaction of only focusing on those aspects where everybody is seen as alien except the Hindu mainstream. And I have great respect for the recitation of Hindu civilization, but these are extremes which we must avoid if we want to create a sane, balanced, confident and culturally rooted India.
Do you agree with that, Mr. Gupta? How do you achieve this fine balance that Mr. Verma speaks of?
You know, it's very easy to say just accept and move on. Unfortunately, that never happens. Number one. Number two, let us just wind back to the point where he began. For all his claimed greatness, Jawaharlal Nehru was perhaps the most deracinated leader this country has ever had the misfortune of having. He never could fathom the soul of India, and that is where Gandhi scored over him. Gandhiji realized that the soul of India is deeply spiritual, it is deeply rooted to the soil. And that brought about these distortions in governance, and ultimately those distortions percolate down to academics, the history writing project. Why would I just give a pass to the manner in which history was written and not scrutinize it to expose those who were behind, or the thought processes that were behind the writing of that particularly blotted, concocted history? It's very easy to say that, we have to accept and move on. Why? Why is it that a road in Lutyens, Delhi should have been named after Aurangzeb? Why is it, Pawan just mentioned, the sacking of Nalanda? Why is it that we still have a railway station and a town named after Bakhtiyar? Why is it that I am expected to grin and bear it? Now these are questions which the multitudes now have begun to ask, and there are no convincing replies. You can't just say, I will not change the name of Bakhtiyarpur because that is going to hurt sentiments. My big fat toe. Here was a man who sacked perhaps the world's oldest library and definitely the world's largest library of that time. And that sacking was preceded by a very particularly brutal massacre. And yet we are reluctant to accept. I mean, if you accept, then change. If you don't change, then that means you neither accept nor are you willing to concede that you were wrong. No, but my contention is slightly more than that. You know, when you talk about looking for something as simple as inspirational Indians, why is it that the dispensation which India has had till now never tried to make someone like Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar into an inspirational figure? Because he was a Sanskrit teacher. But look at his social achievements. He is the man who got widow remarriage legalized in this country. He is the man who introduced formal education for women and girls in this country. Now we were never told this story. How many beyond Bengal are aware of these stories? And it's a long list. I just gave you one example.
Or Netaji Subhash.
Or Netaji Subhash. We just heard someone begin at the previous session said, I would like to begin with prayers to Netaji. I thought, wow, I mean, that's very impressive. He meant Mulayam Singh Yadav, but today is the day. How many of you in the audience are aware that today, on this day in 1943, Subhash Chandra Bose declared the formation of the provisional government of Azad Hind? Hands up, please. How many of you are actually aware of this fact? See, you have your answer. And when this happens, there is deracination becomes a fashion statement. It becomes a way of life. And this great hoax of Western modernization then becomes the substitute. And that is something which we must agitate against. And I personally feel media can play an effective role. And I'm glad that on two recent instances, media played quite an effective role. One on the very stupid debate on whether the lions of the new lion capital atop the new parliament building, whether they look fierce, whether they look angry.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And the other one was when they finally got around to dropping Abide by Me from the beating retreat. And the chest beating that happened, as if India's fundamental character, fundamental identity was getting despoiled, it was getting destroyed by dropping that hymn. So that is the extent of colonization of the Indian mind. And lastly, although not really connected, but let us also not over glorify media as it existed. I think Arnab does a far more fierce and fearless job than many other editors did when we were growing up. I was in high school when emergency happened, 1975-77. And there is this great myth that the media and the press fought against it, which is just not true. Every newspaper crumbled. Ultimately, even Indian Express crumbled. There are these myths that newspapers carried black boxes as editorials. One newspaper, Indian Express, carried it, and after that, the emergency regime came down so strongly that even they crumbled, which led to L.K. Advani's famous comment as INB minister after the emergency, that he said that when asked to bend, you chose to crawl. So hopefully that era is over, and media today is way more independent. It is definitely more conscious to news consumers, what they want. Nothing wrong with that. I mean, after all, you are producing news for consumption. And so long as the demand is not for pornographic or salacious content, if it is for good content which resonates with your viewer, with your reader, you should do it. That should be the way forward towards creating a truly Indian narrative.
You mentioned the emergency, and when I was growing up in the 70s and 80s, I heard about this phrase called the foreign hand, and then much later one hears of how foreign governments and intelligence organizations engage in narrative building. There's a lovely book out by Vikram Sood which talks about this. Mr. Verma, do you agree with this, the fact that the ultimate goal of nations is to actually build narratives, and we all pray to one narrative or the other, whether it's the...
You see, every nation should have narratives. I hesitate to say that a nation's narrative should only be this, because there is, by that very statement, a sense of exclusion and a certain hesitancy to enter into a debate. After all, we are a dialogic civilization. The Bhagavad Gita is a dialogue. 3 foundational texts of Hinduism. The Upanishad is a dialogue. It's not a fiat, it's not a certitude. So there is room for discussion and debate. The Brahma Sutras are always allow for the opponent's point of view to be put in before they come to an conclusion. This is the nature of our civilization. And if we have to recall it in its entirety, I am again a little wary of people who say this is the narrative that we now must adopt. Because what is our civilizational legacy? One of our Mahavakyas is Ekam Sat Vipraha Bahuda Vadanti. There is one truth, but wise people call it by different names. That is the kind of deliberative, cerebral civilization we need to once again resuscitate. If you say, Ano Bhadra Kritavo Yantu Vishwata, let good thoughts flow to me from all directions, then you must be open for that debate. And that is why I say that in this process of rebuilding our narrative, we need to avoid dogmatism. We need to be careful about the things we need to erase, and there are many, and I have detailed them in some of my recent writings. Erase or interrogate. But equally it is important that you do not use political power to impose, because the project of decolonization is itself under evolution. If suppose, in order to reclaim our culture and history, we begin to say in a patriarchal society that there is a certain definition of a chaste Hindu Nari, and that anything else is conjured as being against that civilizational legacy, I believe that would be wrong. So we need to find that balance, and one of the important things, and Kanchan mentioned it, so I'm going to give you a very small anecdote in 2 minutes. A leading media journalist, icon for many, who runs a particular program called Aapki Adalat. Now, he had invited Prime Minister Vajpayee when Prime Minister for that function. And when it finished, as the Prime Minister was leaving, he told, I might as well take the name, Rajat, and this was told to me by Rajat Sharma. He said to him, मैं आपसे खुश नहीं हूं. I am not happy with you. And left. And Rajat told me that he couldn't sleep that night, that maybe he has asked an awkward, uncomfortable question to the Prime Minister or been far too dominant as an interviewer. So, next day he asked for time, and 2 days later he met the Prime Minister at the Prime Minister's residence, and Vajpayee ji on his lawn having a cup of tea, and as Rajat came, he said, "Sir, मैंने कुछ आपने कहा आप खुश नहीं हो." उसने कहा, हाँ रजत जी, and they are friends, आपने अपने पत्रकारिता के धर्म से बगावत की. You have betrayed your dharma as a journalist. You did not ask me a difficult question. And this is important today. Where is that sense of tolerance in the imperative for change? For getting a new narrative, you must allow space for dissent, for questions, for interrogations, and that process becomes fragile and dangerous when you do not allow anything but your definition of what change needs to be allowed.
Can I just wait?
Of course.
Disclosure, I was Atalji's OST, as Pawan knows.
I translated his poem, so we had become good friends.
And Atalji was given to these enigmatic statements. Someone who also worked in the PMO one day came late for a meeting, and Atalji looked at him and said, "Aap late ho?" So he said, "Sorry, I was having a bath or something," he said. "Acha, aap nahate bhi hain?" So I would discount his off-the-cuff remarks. See, I work for Government of India, so I have no hesitation in saying this. My job is to push an India story that shows India in the best of colors. Now, if I try to show India in the worst of colors, I would be dishonest to my job. My Prime Minister's job is to sell the best of India to the world. My government's job is to amplify that part, that bit. And that's why I said there is no one narrative. Today, the best narrative for India, the only, and I would suggest the only narrative for India which should be focused on, is the economy. Now, never mind the Cassandras, all the, कौन था वो RBI का governor?
Raghuram Rajan.
Raghuram Rajan, who after finding 1 million faults now says that India should not get into manufacturing to save the environment. So, never mind Cassandras. And you are in the bright spot today. What happens a fortnight later, a month later, a year later, neither you have seen it nor I have seen it. Kal kisne dekha hai? So today my story is this, and I shall push it. I shall push my envelope. Tomorrow my story would be, when Mangalayan happened, on which New York Times ran a racist cartoon. My story was that we were able to send a mission to Mars with Indian technology, indigenous technology developed by Indian scientists at a fraction of the cost of similar missions. So these stories will change. These stories will change from day to day, from month to month, from quarter to quarter. And we must pick, at least I have to pick on the best story to push that. You see, the problem is, I really don't think much of white media, I mean the Western media. They have no stakes in India. They are not invested in India. But it is Indian media which has stakes in India, in India's prosperity, in India's growth, in India's development, because as India grows, the media also grows. And sadly, there are doubters among us. A trashy report like the hunger index. Nobody, I mean, again I would ask your audience, how many of you actually know who prepares the World Hunger Index? And how many of you know how is it prepared? There was this joke about it. I get a call in the morning, someone asks me, are you hungry? I say yes, because I was hungry, I hadn't had my breakfast. And he says, yeah, I say, yes, I am hungry. And this guy says, oh, thank you, I was doing the survey for World Hunger Index. Now, that is how frivolous is the process. That is how trivial is the process. All these indices. Now, anybody in this room who says that there is no press freedom in this country, every morning just look at your newspapers, at your editorials. Every evening look at your primetime TV. Now, if supporting India is to be conflated with supporting the government, then I guess, yeah, there is a problem.
You buy that, Mr. Verma? No, Kanchan is an old friend, and we go back a long time.
And both of you smoke pipes.
And there's a great deal of mutual respect, but I must disagree with him here. For instance, his statement that today the spotlight is on India's economy, I accept. But then he says something which, having served in some countries abroad which were not democratic, I am very concerned about. He says, but there are doubters. Why shouldn't there be doubters in a democracy who hold a different point of view? There are people who, we are all proud of some of the achievements of our economy and of the government. At the same time, if 800 million people are getting one meal a day still, after so many years of independence, on government dole, and there are 200 million people living below the poverty line as per objective verifiable data, we must say that the successful cannot secede from this country to form their own republic. Jeena yahan, marna yahan, sabko saath hi jeena hai. So there can be different points of view even on the economy. Secondly, see, one thing is to say that anybody who raises a question is a Cassandra, either Cassandra or anti-national. I am not attributing it to you, but I've heard it enough, which is a way of stifling dissent. What is the image we want to project to the world? We want to project an image of a vibrant democracy which has managed to grow economically while remaining democratic. That is our real achievement. China doesn't have it. Russia doesn't have it. And that is an image which is the core of our soft power. Now I give you an example, and I am not making this political, and I don't want to make it. Since 2014, Kanchan, 405 sedition cases have been filed. Of these, and my statistics are subject to correction, 149 of these sedition cases have been filed against people accused of making quote unquote critical or quote unquote derogatory remarks against the Prime Minister. And 144 have been filed for similar kind of remarks against Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath. Now, I am not saying necessarily that we are undemocratic, but I worry sometimes that in our attempt to build a narrative, are we in some way negating the richest essence of our legacy, which is to allow for counter narratives? Not deracinated Western irrelevant narratives, but our own narrative can have many facets to it. And if we stop allowing them or become hostile to them or treat them as adversarial, I don't believe we are doing our nation in the long run a good service, especially a nation and a civilization like this.
Do you want to respond to that, Mr. Gupta?
Yeah, you know, I will not wade into statistics over here unless I have seen and verified. On the issue of sedition, I think the government of India has taken a quasi position which has been communicated to the courts, and we have to see how it goes. So let's keep it out. Counter narratives I'm perfectly fine with. Counter views I'm perfectly fine with. But when I bring in a law, a very simple law, that any Hindu, any Buddhist, any Jain, any Sikh, any Parsi, that is the 5 designated minorities in Pakistan, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, they suffer harassment, intimidation, outrage, whatever. Government of India shall step forward and help them by giving them expedited, not exclusive, but expedited citizenship. Anybody can ask and get for citizenship. Here it was about fast track citizenship. And the protests that break out, that is counter narrative. That is to ensure that the tormentors in these 3 countries can continue to torment, because that is a privilege, and these so-called counter narrative wallahs, they want to protect that privilege. We have to understand, we can trivialize this discussion and say, oh, any voice of dissent. Of course there must be dissent, there must be disagreement, there must be debate, there must be deliberation. What else is democracy about? But now we have taken it to a point where dissent, or rather anarchy, means dissent. Where if the government says, look, it's a good sunny day, people will say, how dare you, it's a dark night. And that's how it happens. But yes, the government or the state cannot wield a stick all the time. It has to carry, and it must carry everybody along.
And this is what we've seen with the CAA protests and the farmer agitation.
Farmers' agitation.
Yes.
And how many of you are aware that the latest story out of Punjab farmers are selling their rice to markets in Haryana because they are getting a better price over there? So what was the agitation about? So that was also a counter narrative. Now, Sandeep, this is not something which I say with a great degree of happiness. But I increasingly find that in the name of giving space to a counter view, the absurdest of absurd stuff is given a pass and media plays it up. There is no scrutiny, there is no questioning, there is no application of mind. I mean, Pawan, recently Mamata Banerjee says that I did not chase Tatas out of West Bengal, the CPM did. And media runs it in toto. When facts are to the contrary. So, fact check is to be reserved for only a few and everybody else gets a pass. So yes, when it comes to the India narrative, we should not make it into a party political issue. We should not make it into a partisan issue. It is something to showcase India. It is to exhibit India. As I said, it is to present the best of India. And I think we are nearing the end of it.
Nearing the end of it.
Okay, so the last word I will give to Pawan. I will give it to Pawan, but before that, I mean, it's a very favorite folk tale which I often give as an example. It's a folk tale about a Cossack. So there is this young Cossack who always wanted a horse that would be the best horse in the village. So he works hard, he saves money, and he goes to the animal market and he buys this stallion, white stallion with a flowing mane, full set of teeth, 7 feet tall, and he rides the horse back to his village square. It was a Sunday and the villagers were gathered over there. He dismounts and presents his horse that, look, I bought this horse. And everybody is thrilled. So some people go around patting the horse, checking its tail, checking its teeth, etc. Now there was this local resident intellectual who also happened to be the Pravda correspondent of that village. So the intellectual goes, now everybody has praised the horse. So the intellectual goes, lifts the horse's tail, smells and says the horse stinks. Now that is what dissent in our country has come to mean, Pawan. That is what disagreement in our country has come to mean. So here is this fine nation doing so well at this point of time. But no, you must go lift the tail, smell and say, no, it stinks.
I'll allow Mr. Verma to respond to that before we wind up.
There's a shortage of time. If a citizen of a democracy where under Article 19(1)(a) of the fundamental rights gives him the fundamental right to say that the horse stinks, he has the right to say it. And therefore, everything that is contrary to your point of view cannot be dismissed as either absurd or frivolous. That's point number one. And I know Kanchan will never become that, but I am concerned about a mindset that sees a difference of opinion as being subversive or somehow unacceptable. Here were two giants, Adi Shankaracharya and Mandan Mishra, came from radically opposite schools, the Karamkand mark and the Gyan mark. And each could have said, what you are saying is rubbishing our philosophical, metaphysical and spiritual legacy. But they sat down to discuss it, debated it, and in the absence of social media, all of India followed it by word of mouth. That is the kind of civilization we come from. Let us not be impatient or intolerant of narratives which are not in frozen conformity with what those in power think it should be.
Thank you very much, Mr. Verma. So that is the civilization that we come from, and with that we come to the end of this extremely engaging session. Thank you very much, Mr. Verma. Thank you, Mr. Gupta. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen, a huge round of applause for Mr. Pavan Verma, Mr. Kanchan Gupta and Mr. Sandeep Punithan of the TV9 network for that fascinating session that just concluded. Another fascinating session on the NBF National Conclave Day. We have a very exciting next session that is coming up. We have a very special guest who's just joined us and who will be taking the stage along with the inimitable Mr. Arnab Goswami in just a few moments. But before that, let's quickly get an understanding of what this session is going to be about. News and nationalism. That's the name of the session, ladies and gentlemen. News is disseminated to ensure citizens benefit and uplift the nation. Using this medium as a vehicle for nationalism would propel a socio-economic change. And to talk all about that, we have a very special guest joining us, and that's none other than Mr. Ravi Shankar Prasad, a nationalist himself, a former union minister and a parliamentarian. But before we get him on stage, let's quickly have the audio visual on him.
News is disseminated to ensure citizens benefit. News is delivered to uplift the nation. News is a means to critique. News is a means to propel change. And news is inherently a vehicle for nationalism. A nationalist, a former union minister and a parliamentarian. Joining us now on the NBF National Conclave is Mr. Ravi Shankar Prasad on the future of news and nationalism.
So that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Make no more ado. Inviting on stage Mr. Ravi Shankar Prasad, a nationalist, a former union minister and a parliamentarian, to speak on news and nationalism, and of course our very own Mr. Arnab Goswami as well. Gentlemen, the floor is all yours. Can't wait to hear you.
Sir, the mic is yours. No, you sit, sir, please. Please, unless you want to leave and you're tired of my questions, you can sit here. We can sit here as long as we like. So, ladies and gentlemen, in the 1990s, once I was doing a TV program. That is when I started doing a program occasionally on TV. I got an opportunity to do a debate program. I was very young, and I was told that we have this new speaker who is going to join us on a link from Patna. And we were about 10 minutes late on him. Like, we made him wait 10 minutes. And he said this man has a huge temper. He's getting very angry. He's threatening to walk out of the program. And I said, who is it? Who is it? They said, no, he's the first time we are getting him on television. First time this man is coming on national television. I said, who is this unique personality who is getting an opportunity for the first time on national television and is throwing a gigantic tantrum? That person was Ravi Shankar Prasad. His first television appearance was with me, where he was very angry because I made him wait 10 minutes. And obviously he's mellowed down because I made him wait 15 minutes today, but you've not walked out. What a journey for you, right?
Well, friends, Arnav is a very good friend. I take all his barb with a smile. In fact, he has forgotten, he only remembered the Patna chapter. My first formal TV appearance was with him when I became an MP in the year 2000, I suppose, or 2001. He is sitting with some of his very eminent friends who are now on the other side. And that was my first appearance with him. And thereafter, He rose very high in life. I am very happy with his performance. I am proud of him. The way he left his mark on the entire television news ecosystem of the country. And today, when I see him leading this NBF, a vast coalition of news channels from across the country, of all sides. In a lighter vein, you know how difficult it is to run a coalition, and heading a coalition of broadcasters or news channels is not a small job. Therefore, my compliments to him. Let's go, straight away on the job.
Well, I know. But as I was telling, my dear friends at NBF, this is a stable coalition.
Yes, it is.
Unlike you politicians, we run stable coalitions, are we right? With a stable and functioning coalition with its own governance mechanism inside it. But should we hit the ground running now, Mr. Prasad?
One comment in lighter vein. Coalition to run also need to have an effective leader. And on a very lighter note, and with great respect to all, with malice to none, the age of Devegowdas and Inder Gujral are over now. Therefore, if some people are trying to revive the coalition in the same model, sorry Arnab Goswami, it is not going to have any future.
You are creating an imaginary opposition where you have effectively reduced, where you have created a situation where there is no opposition in the country. But Mr. Prasad, let's hit the ground running, and let me just, this has been a broad sweep conversation. We began the day with industry giants, people from the world of business. So we had about 6 or 7 sessions on the world of business. Then we had keynote speakers on politics, we've had sessions on politics. Now I just want you to turn the clock back 25 years, Mr. Prasad. Then and now, as a participant in the media, as a stakeholder in the media in a way, right? As an observer in the media, in your regulatory function as the Union Minister for Information and Broadcasting, a ministry which you have held in the Vajpayee government and in the Modi government. So I don't know too many people who have held the same ministry after a span of 15 years.
I was IT and communication in Modi government.
So you've had this interface with the media.
I was law common in both the government.
Yeah, law was common, sorry. But you have had this interface with the media for 25 years. Give me a bird's eye view of how you see the media evolve over 25 years in this country.
Well, friends, let me give you my own understanding of media. The first was when Congress was all powerful. And the most glaring example was emergency, because I am also a product of JP movement. We fought against the emergency. And the best part, some very leading lights were arrested. It is a lesson for those who criticize us today. They need to ponder. Kuldeep Nair was arrested, an eminent editor, and there was not even a whisper. And I remember Advani ji coining a famous expression, or no, when they were asked to bend, they were prepared to crawl. And that was the whole scenario. Then came 80s. Then came the Ram Janmabhoomi movement you talked about. I was Advaniji's lawyer also. Was Ram Janmabhoomi movement a great newsworthy event or not? It was. How it was painted, it changed the politics of the country in many ways. Now, you need to project the news as it is. You can give your views also, but the way this movement or my party, the BJP, was portrayed, we all know it. Take the case of Vajpayee government. When Vajpayee ji became the Prime Minister for 13 days, how he was caricatured, how could you become the Prime Minister? BJP was the biggest party, and the rest is history, is too well known to you. Then Arno, again I wish to compliment Arno, he was on then other channel. I was an important voice of opposition in the parliament, also the deputy leader of my party in the Rajya Sabha. Great gruesome cases of corruption came. I don't know some of you remember it or not, the 2G, to a spectrum allocation, to a whole lot of other things happened. How did media behave? And I would like to say with great respect, except few exceptions, how did the print media behave? 1, 2 exception newspapers were there, I need to salute them. And thereafter, I remember Arnab Goswami taking a frontal lead therein, and some others also joined in. And ultimately what happened, we all know it. Therefore, when we talk of media today, we have to keep this perspective in mind. I'm sorry to make this comment, ladies and gentlemen, but how much my Prime Minister has been victimized as a Gujarat Chief Minister? He was getting elected and re-elected. Riots anywhere is unfortunate or no. Those who have perpetrated need to be ultimately suffer the process of law. Mr. Modi has to suffer it. Supreme Court set up a SIT. The SIT investigated him for 2 years. A sitting elected chief minister was subjected to 12 hours of investigation by the SIT. And mind you, on Gujarat there was no public protest by BJP as it happened in case of a leader, in the case of the great National Herald scam case. You know it very well. How did the media report? He was exonerated, yet questions were asked. It's a different matter. Today he has come with flying colors. Now I come, Arnab, to this stage where I have to raise some questions, and I'll be happy if we engage in that. When the PFI was banned, why there was no clear voice of appreciation in some columns? Forget about the political leaders who maintain a conspicuous silence. Why no questions were asked that this rank anti-national group, which is out to wreck the country because of terrorism and their own radical agenda, must be put in its place? Why silence? And therefore today I am asking this question from this forum and this platform. The second question I would like to ask, I see many of my distinguished women colleagues here. Triple talaq, you know, I had the privilege and honor that the Prime Minister asked me to lead the abolition of that bill in the Parliament. Today it became a law. Except the BJP and the allies of NDA, except one, all other opposed. All means all. Was any question asked by the media to the Congress party, headed by a woman leader of some distinction? Or to Mamta ji, who is also a woman leader in Bengal? Why you are opposing it? Many Islamic countries have already completely regulated and controlled this vicious, barbaric practice of triple talaq. और उन्होंने आपको बताया हम इसका इन्वेस्टिगेशन कर रहे थे ना, तो आई वॉज शॉक टू हियर रोटी जली हुई बन गई 3 तलाक, पत्नी लेट से उठी 3 तलाक. And I met an IT professional. She came to meet me. She gave birth to the 3rd girl child और husband ने गल्फ कंट्री से व्हाट्सएप से भेज दिया तलाक तलाक तलाक. It was so atrocious. लेकिन बड़ा सवाल मैं आपके सामने उठाना चाहता हूं कि क्या कांग्रेस पार्टी, क्या बीएसपी, क्या लेफ्ट पार्टी, क्या सीपीआई, क्या सीपीएम, क्या डीएमके ये खामोश रहे और बाकी लीडिंग मीडिया भी उन्होंने सवाल क्यों नहीं पूछा जो हमसे रोज सवाल पूछते हैं, जो रोज बाकी बात करते हैं? तो ये सवाल उठने चाहिए. एंड द थर्ड इशू और नो which I would like to flag here, is nationalism a dirty word? आप डिफर कर सकते हैं, आप हमारे से डिफर करिए, इट्स योर राइट. आप औरनों से डिफर करिए, इट इज योर राइट. बट द वेरी आइडिया ऑफ इंडिया, द वेरी आइडिया ऑफ ए सॉवरन सिक्योर इंडिया, why should it become an anathema? And the last point, Arnab, before we come to discussing, because I thought I must convey what I thought on this particular forum. If Modi ji is reviving the beauty of Kashi Vishwanath, if he is reviving the beauty of Ujjain Mahakal, or restoring the glory of Kedarnath and Badrinath, I see people are uncomfortable. Why? Is the civilizational heritage of India so bad? It was a pleasure to see him talking about the great glory of the temples of South India, all thousands years old. Why not? Why can't Ayodhya and Mathura and Kashi and other Rameshwaram can become as beautiful, as glorious as other cities of the world having the religious significance? That is very important. If you do that, then India is being taken backward. No.
No, this is great, but...
That is a narrative.
No, this is great, but there's the other narrative, you see. As they say in English, and I need a clarification on this, because you see, we are a very robust body. Within this coalition of this federation of the News Broadcasters Federation are people with an independent spirit. If I call you for one of our coffee sessions, you will never be able to find a situation where anyone agrees with each other. I shouldn't be telling a politician how the media has fights within, but anyway. Fundamentally, the question is, as they say in English, Mr. Prasad, the shoe pinches when it's on the other foot. I remember you as opposition leader. But you believe in the rights when you are in the opposition. And you believe in the restrictions when you're in power. The restrictions on 19(1)A were introduced by Nehru, am I right? Rhythm? And a few years after, when he realized that he cannot allow us the same level of freedom as in the other countries who he referred to. Are you open to a real dialogue? If you are, then are you open to the contrary position being told to you? Or do you also react much in the same way? First question. So do you then start using the same clauses brought in by Nehru, the same restrictions brought in by your political opponents, who you have never had any ideological convergence with? Do you shoot off their shoulder? That's question one. Question two, I'm glad you reminded me. You were a minister in the Vajpayee government. Did you not try to set a narrative in your own way? Did you not go on this massive publicity campaign of India shining? Were you not closeted? Did you not start believing in your own narrative? And did the people of India not prove you wrong? So I have two questions. One is, do you practice what you preach when you are in power? Two, when you are in power, do you try to set the narrative too hard? I'm not saying you have an equivalent of India shining now, but you do remember India shining and you were in government then. So I want a clear answer to both these thoughts, Mr. Prasad.
I must tell you, friends, I'm one-to-one with him after some time. The same style, the same eloquence, the same vehemence. Good or no? Keep it up. We have not met on television for some time.
You're welcome, sir. You're welcome.
We have not met on television for some time. Well, friends, let me be very, very honest. Janta Malik hai. People are the boss. We are very proud the way this whole national road connectivity got started. The way the other initiative started by Bajpayee government. The way India became an atomic power. We lost. We lost. We have never cribbled about that. But to say that our achievements were not something significant is something I am not willing to accept. In democracy, the biggest thing is people know who they are and they can change the government. But Arnab, since you are asking me this question in a different context, let me reply to you straight away in this context. समस्या अर्णव बाबू ये होती है कि कुछ लोग को परेशानी होती है कि नरेंद्र मोदी जीत कैसे जाते हैं. Why Mr. Modi wins? He won a complete majority in the year 2014. He won a complete majority in 2019. Who knows, he will again repeat thrice in 2024 as well. Hopefully all indications are to that extent. But the way he has led India, led the country, or now see his courage. Today he was in Mana village, Badrinath Yatra. And from there, did not give some indication to China also? Just to give you one example, the roads between India and China on the borders were never a priority agenda for the Manmohan Singh government. There is a statement by Mr. Anthony, as the defense minister, we don't want to create trouble with China by making our roads very perfect there. Now see all the roads, connectivity, all the bridges. India's global prestige, respect, it must have been talked about. Economic clout, it must have been talked about. But the point I'm trying to say is, you criticize, but try to see the positive aspect as well. Now on 19, let me give a reply both as a student of India's constitution and also as a political activist. When 19 was introduced as a fundamental right, Rhythm, kindly check it up, freedom of speech and expression. At the same time, 19.2 was also introduced. What is Article 19.2? Reasonable restrictions can be imposed in the case of safety, security, integrity and sovereignty of India. And on many other clauses, association, vagara, vagara. Therefore, who introduced this particular clause? Dr. Rajendra Prasad, Sardar Patel, Jawaharlal Nehru, Maulana Azad, Dr. Ambedkar and a host of other makers of India's constitution. Therefore, reasonable restriction part is a part of that. We have not brought it. But Arnab, let me ask a counter question to you in this context.
I am moderating the session.
No, but I have to. Then you reply and then we'll proceed. You have mentioned it in the course of debate on your channel. And now the police investigation confirms. And then I was handling these portfolios, I had also sensitive information. If from across the border, you are getting sponsored WhatsApp messages, unidentified, man the word, designed to provoke on false propaganda, should the government keep quiet in the plea of freedom of speech and expression? Allow the riots to take place? My young friends are sitting before me. As an IT minister, I used to get a lot of complaint. Mother said, my daughter's morphed image is being circulated by the ex-boyfriend. Please help me. Should I keep quiet? Or I should respect the dignity of that young woman? These are questions to be considered when you talk of freedom of speech and expression. And what they used to say, go and file a complaint in America. No, you have to abide by the laws of India. Therefore, or no, it is both ways. Let me in your presence commit on behalf of my party, Narendra Modi ji and our school of thought, we respect freedom of speech and expression.
Can I respond to, if
Yes.
that was a question?
Yes, go ahead.
Well, I believe that you have allowed American tech giants to plunder our market. Allow me to complete. You've been IT minister. If you want me to be frank, I'll tell you. Organizations whose servers are not in India and nor will they be in India, who are therefore not committed to follow the Indian law, will continually be in litigation with you in Indian courts, are controlling the narrative as you have seen. You battled it yourself. I compliment you. But I find it both amusing and worrying that an organization like Twitter continues to be the central social media tool for millions of Indians. Are we incapable of building an alternative, or are we incapable of promoting an alternative, is the thought which we have to ask ourselves. That's one question. My second question to you, sir, that's my response. So I want to draw you into this narrative building thing. We are all journalists, we run media companies, we edit media companies. Our lives are in the media. You said people are against you, but are you not also making mistakes yourself? Why is it that after you got such a big verdict in 2014, was your government completely put on the edge over the land acquisition bill? Sir, May 16, 2014, you got elected. By January, your government was completely up to the wall. Now, either you had a problem then in communication. Second example, why was your government completely put to the wall over quote unquote the farmers agitation, which I don't believe was a farmers agitation. I believe it was propelled, but many other people believe it was genuine. But why for 1 year was there an up and down on it, sir? It started from around November, November 2021. And, my standing joke is that these controversies last as long as my legal cases. The third point is on Shaheen Bagh, on CA. You spoke about the riots, but why did 56 people have to die in this city, sir? So, are you also making fundamental mistakes of communication? Will you at least concede that? You can't always blame an opposition party or blame the media for it. Is there a problem in your communication or not? Does the House agree with me? Answer.
Democratic government, if we respect, as a democratic government, I'm replying to your point number 2 on the 2 bills. As a democratic government, if we wish to respect some sentiments and seek to revisit the law, it does not mean we are caving in. That is what democracy is about. And land acquisition, we gave the power to the states, and many states are pursuing it. Your opposition, fine, but now many states are pursuing it. Therefore, you should not call it a day. On the agriculture law, I can only tell you this. The Prime Minister had a dialogue with them for so many months. A team under his direction was talking to them. Some people were not willing to understand at all. Then the Prime Minister said, let the democratic view take its course. And what happened in Uttar Pradesh, you saw it very well. Western UP was the fulcrum of their agitation. But the process of reform in the agriculture sector will go on. And that results, you are seeing how modern technology is taking such big giant steps in the field of agriculture. That is a debate, separate chapter. We'll do it later on. On Twitter specific or no, I quite concede your point. But you have seen me taking a firm stand that Twitter banning the account of people who were raising the Capitol Hill in Washington.
Right.
And Twitter appreciating, eulogizing those who were jumping over the Red Fort with naked sword as freedom of speech and expression is plainly not acceptable. If Capitol Hill is a shining example of American democracy, the Red Fort is a shining example of Indian democracy, where the Prime Minister unfurls the national flag. And ultimately they conceded. I took a tough stand, nothing doing. You are right, the filed cases, ultimately they had to appoint. Now the present minister and the others will respond to it. But have you seen a very interesting thing or no?
Sir.
It led to a lot of changes in Twitter itself. You have seen that, the way they handle India. Let us not go into that. Yes, you have a point, should we complete, but by the way, coup came or not? I know you promote coup, I promote coup. Republic engagement is also very much to that platform. So Indian initiative is also coming about. India's startup movement, I am very happy I had a role to play in that. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish to tell you, India's IT ecosystem, remember 2 facts very clearly. Indian startup movement, the 3rd biggest in the world. Today, 100 Indian startups are unicorn. Unicorns mean you know very well, $1 billion revenue, 7,000 crores. Young people, all the fields, salute to their great innovation and enterprise. The second, one statistics always remember. India population 1.33 billion. India home to about 1.31 billion Aadhaar card, digital identity. About 1.18 billion mobile phones, out of which nearly 80 million are smartphones. This is a unique phenomena happening in the country, and for me, the biggest sense of satisfaction comes about when I go to the rural part of India and young people say, Sir, hum bhi Googling karte hain, hum bhi search engine chalate hain. That's good, innovation of India. So let us not be very indifferent to this kind of aspiration happening in the country. But you have a point or no? And I am very clear, the government of Narendra Modi is equally clear, while giving them all the space to operate in India, you will need to follow the laws of India. And I am very sure they cannot afford to ignore India, because India is the biggest market for them also. Whether it's the Facebook or the WhatsApp or the others. And Indians are also doing so well, those companies, because of the great ability and technological prowess of Indians. This is how we need to see about it. अच्छा अर्णव बाबू, एक बात मैं आपसे और कहूंगा.
हाँ बोलिए.
कृपा करके आप भारत को इतना कमजोर मत समझिए.
कोई
आ जाएगा इंग्लैंड की तरह और भारत को कैप्चर कर लेगा.
मैं तो उल्टा
हम लोग बहुत मजबूत हैं और यहाँ के नौजवान भी बहुत मजबूत हैं और नरेंद्र मोदी भी बहुत मजबूत हैं.
मैं तो बिल्कुल नहीं समझता हूं. मैं तो ये कह रहा हूं रविशंकर प्रसाद जी कि आप और आपकी सरकार जो जियो पॉलिटिक्स में लेवरेज कर रही है भारत के स्ट्रेंथ को, उसको मैं सपोर्ट करता हूं. वी आर वन ऑफ द लार्जेस्ट डिजिटल इकोनॉमीज इन द वर्ल्ड. मैं तो कहता हूं दैट वी शुड लीवरेज दैट मोर. We should leverage that more. I am pushing you in that direction. Yeah. You are fully aware.
My young friend, sorry for interrupting you. Can you believe 200 crores vaccination was intimated how? On your mobile phone or not? When you will get the vaccination? At what destination? Can you believe it? Today by direct benefit transfer, we have transferred how many billions of rupees and how much we have saved? 20,000 crores. Duplicate, fake. Hardly 3-4 days, the Prime Minister sent about 1 lakh crore to 11 crore farmers at a click of a button. You know it very well. So therefore, we are seeing all those things happening in India and we'll continue to do that. Huh?
Okay, so one quick question to you. Do you worry about, I worry about the absence of an opposition in this country. Does it give you sleepless nights? I mean, you know, we always think about, why? You find that question amusing?
अच्छा मेरे friends.
No, I know. Mr. Prasad.
I will talk to my friends. अच्छा मेरे साथियों एक चीज बताइए. अपोजिशन बनाना हमारा काम है क्या? मुझे बता दीजिए.
No, but what is the?
एक मिनट रुकिए.
No, that's all right.
अगर उनको वोट नहीं देते हैं तो उनको वोट हम दिलवाएं क्या? उनके नेता यात्रा करते हैं, करते रहे.
प्रसाद इधर देखिए.
No, एक मिनट में आपको तो नहीं देखूंगा. आपका जवाब मैं तो रुकिए एक मिनट. हमारा आपका ओल्ड सिस्टम चलने दीजिए एक मिनट.
ओल्ड सिस्टम चलेगा. आई एम आस्किंग यू, इट्स अ सीरियस क्वेश्चन. आप पहले इधर देखिए. यू आर ट्राइंग टू बी अ पॉपुलिस्ट. आई नो यू आर विनिंग लोकसभा इलेक्शंस नाउडेज, बट यू सी कार्तिक, he's got completely spoiled since he started fighting. He doesn't even address the anchor anymore. Mr. Prasad,
we are close friends. Take it easy. Yes.
Yeah. No, Mr. Prasad, what is, in your view, the impact of a cluttered opposition in a country as vast and as globally significant as India, overall on society and the media? I just like your take on that.
Well, or no, let's be very clear. In democracy, you need to have opposition. Why not? We are most welcome. Opposition of all the shades. We are all in favor of a healthy opposition, a good debate, a good questioning. लेकिन आजकल तो संसद में क्या है कि वो हल्ला करते हैं, अपनी बात के हमारा जवाब भी सुने तो कुछ हमें भी आनंद आए. वो तो गाहे बगाहे गले भी पड़ जाते हैं आजकल, आप देखते हैं, उसको आपने देखा होगा. छोड़िए इस बात को. But what I am trying to say is, it is not my responsibility or BJP's responsibility to ensure that they get votes. अब क्या करें हम? कभी हुआ पुत्र जी आएंगे तो पार्टी खूब आगे बढ़ जाएगी. नहीं हुआ. अब कहा पुत्री जी को भेज दीजिए तो पार्टी खूब आगे बढ़ जाएगी. तो यूपी में क्या हुआ आपने देखा. अब कहीं और पुत्र आ गए तो वो पार्टी आगे बढ़ जाएगी. रिमेंबर द टेक्टोनिक शिफ्ट इन द पॉलिटिक्स ऑफ इंडिया. The politics of India or now has become aspirationals. The young people of India, the demographic dividend we talk about, know what they expect from their leader, what kind of performance they seek. And most important, they have understood the great advantage when India is led by a popular leader and there is a stable government. That they have understood. Let's leave it to people. हम ये हमेशा कहेंगे कि कांग्रेस पार्टी जीते हमारी शुभकामना है, अपोजिशन भी आए हमारी शुभकामना है, लेकिन अगर जनता उनको वोट नहीं देती और नरेंद्र मोदी के काम को अच्छा मानती है तो इसके लिए आप मुझे क्यों आलोचना करते हैं?
नहीं, आपको नहीं कर रहा, मैं आपको नहीं कर रहा।
मत करिए आप।
I know you like the Congress. They are your biggest asset, we all know that. There's no problem on that. Every chance you get, you promote the Congress. Have you ever promoted the Aam Aadmi Party like you promote the Congress? Have you ever promoted KCR? Have you ever promoted any political party like you promote the Congress? You actively promote the Congress and you ensure that they have a longer existence. No problem with that. It could be a political strategy. My last question to you is, we can afford to have a joke at each other's expense. Only I can take these kind of liberties with you, sir. It's all right. It's all right. They've chosen me for this event. Last question to you. We need diversity in politics, in society. We also need diversity in media. What if I were to take these 78 channels out? Riniki? If 78 channels are removed from the face of the Indian media, will be a better democracy? And now you'll ask me, why are you asking this question or not? You have 78 channels. You'll say it's not my responsibility to run the channels, but I'd remind you that it is. Then you'll ask me how. I'd say to you, sir, in our first session, our second session, and you'll understand this well because you've been MIB, talk was of consolidation. Who can afford to consolidate? Those who have capital. You've been IT minister. Who can afford to park capital? Like they say in India, you make an investment in India of thousands of crores, you make losses over years. Who can afford to do that, sir? The Walmarts and the Facebooks can afford to do that, not entrepreneurs. Therefore, my question is very pertinent. If Indian, and I know there are big corporate houses who are entering the media, and that's the context of my question. Isn't it the government's responsibility to ensure that there remains a level playing field? If sometimes step out of its way to encourage entrepreneurs. Out of these channels, there are many entrepreneurs, sir. They've sacrificed lives. We employ people. We believe we are passionate about the business. For us, media is a business, but is not only a business. And therefore, my last question to you, and I hope I'm speaking for the House, is it not the responsibility of the government to step in when it knows that there are large capital which is coming into the media, and therefore the smaller groups? If you're supporting SMEs in all sections, why not support and actually patronize SMEs in the media sector, and more specifically the news media sector, where in India there is no subscription income. What is the subscription income, Barun? 5%, 6%, not even that. It's basically we run free-to-air channels. It's a public service. We pay crores of rupees to Prasar Bharati to be on their Dish TV free dish platform. We perform a public service. We pay lots of money for it. And then we are put to battle with huge corporate organizations whose ability to park capital in a manner which is unsustainable for us. Is it sustainable for us, Shankar? I wanted to make this point. If we want to preserve Indian democracy, we have to preserve the small and medium players in the Indian news media. Am I not? And if the government does not support us, who will? Therefore, I seek your response on this, and after that I will close.
Or no, it would have been more appropriate had you asked this question to some sitting ministers, but having handled these portfolios in some way, let me reply to it. A free press is essential for Indian democracy. And I am committed to that, and so is our government, so is our party. That is the point number one. Criticism by the media is also welcome, because that gives us the right to also reflect as to what are the shortcomings. Now the third part is concerned, this foreign giant with big money bags trying to influence the media is a larger question of debate. And I share your concerns. I have been very clear about it, that Indian media space should not be allowed to be dominated by foreign institutional investors in a big way. No, I am very clear about it. And I remember when as an INB minister, I we allowed FDI or no, tumko yaad hoga.
But you also restricted it.
I wrote in the files, the foreign investors will have no editorial control whatsoever. And ultimately it holds the field even today. That we have ensured. Now regarding the level playing field is a larger question which requires some consultation, discussions and debate. But speaking for myself as a great supporter of free media, I am not in favor of very undue government regulation part which cages the freedom of media. How it can be done, in what manner it can be done is the question to be considered. Let me see the silver lining. Or no, don't you see how digital media is rising? Including those who are not very, very big brand names are doing so well. How I foresee, as many entrepreneurs are setting up good universities in India, which are making a big name for itself, I foresee in future good Indian entrepreneurs also setting up digital media, which will become a big player in itself to give a level playing field. This is how you see. But ultimately, what is my final take today, ladies and gentlemen? Trust India and trust Indian entrepreneurship. भारत के लोगों को न्यूज से इतना प्रेम है कि जब तक सुबह उठते अखबार नहीं पढ़ेंगे और अर्णब बाबू का चेहरा नहीं देखेंगे, तब तक चाय पूरी नहीं होती है. और रात में जब तक अर्णब बाबू को सुनेंगे नहीं, डिनर नहीं पूरा होता है. तो let this newsy instinct of Indians remain there. And so long as it is there, the future of media in India is always bright. Huh?
Mr. Prasad, I first of all thank you. And you still retain a little bit of that angry young man who wanted to walk out of my show 25 years back. Well, huh? No, should we take questions? We'll wrap up because he's totally, he's Sir, I'll wrap up now because of want of time. Yeah, I'm sure he will. But let's have a nice round of applause for Mr. Prasad. Thank you. It's a wonderful session with you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Ravishankar Prasad. Thank you, Arnab, for that.
Ending this insightful day will be the editors of the News Broadcasters Federation, under whose aegis this entire summit was held. The News Broadcasters Federation, NBF, is India's largest association of over 78 news channels. The importance of this summit cannot be stated enough when the body of 78 news channels in 14 languages representing broadcasters from 25 states comes to talk about the future of news in India. While talking about the new age editors, the NBF editors panel talks about the differences which have come to be in the many years during which what constitutes valuable news itself has undergone an immense change. Editorial lines in such a context can play a major role in polarizing or pacifying the society.
Well, every country in the course of its evolution as a republic goes through this phase of clashing narratives and the instruments of which are media. And I want to now invite up on stage all the new age editors, the media owners, the leaders of the NBF. Let me start by introducing Mr. Kartikeya Sharma. Can I request Mr. Barun Das, Mr. Arnab Goswami, can I have Mr. Vivek Parak, Mr. Divakar, Mr. Manoj Gairola, Ms. Riniki Bhuyan. Yes, can I have all the NBF representatives on stage, please? All the NBF representatives. Everyone who's traveled from every part of the country up on stage. Shankar can I have Mr. Kishore from NE24? Just going through the checklist. Ms. Jackie Panda, if you're in the house. Sanjeev Da is here on stage. Mr. Ravi Ankam, Anand Sankeshwar, Mr. Shankar Bala, Mr. Ankad, Kishore Bora, Anirban Das. If Hemanji is here from TV9, I'm not sure he is. Litisha Panda. Okay, Akshata. Request you to also join them. And can I get a mic, please, can we get a mic? Mic on stage. Arnab, I'm handing it over to you. Do you have a mic?
Well,
Okay.
let everyone come in, Ranjan.
I think everyone's with you, Arnab, on stage.
Our entire
Over to you.
coalition government
yes,
is here.
Yes, everyone's up on stage.
Huh?
She's going to be taking over from me now.
Absolutely. Aishwarya, please join us. Please join us. Who's with us? Mr. Anand Sankeshwar is in the house? Huh? Where's Jaggi Panda? Is Letitia here? Okay. Okay, you got everyone here? Okay, can I just say at the very end of this program how very proud I am of everyone in the NBF for making this possible. This is a very diverse body and we have this on stage and there are hundreds and thousands of people. I would also like to tell you that today I made a calculated guess that between us, I would say confidently reach 80 to 85% of the population of this country of 1.4 billion, which means you look at the combined strength of the News Broadcasting Federation's reach in the medium of television, and I think we have a huge capacity to bring about social change in this country. So I don't know how to thank this group, but for 3 years, through thick and thin and Zoom calls and issues and problems and funding, I think we made this event possible. And I think I speak for everyone when I say I'm so proud of such a federation existing in the world of Indian media. So big round of applause to us guys. Huh? Big round of applause. I think this was a fantastic event. It'll be televised everywhere. So, three cheers for NBF. Hip hip. Hip hip. Hip hip. Okay. Thank you very much. Let's join for dinner and let's get the pictures taken. And we all hope you've had a good time and then we'll share some more good times this evening. Thank you. Thank you for making this NBF dream possible. Thank you so much. And for all the back end, all our teams, all our anchors, our production crew, lots of love to you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Well done. Thank you.